We're live. Jack, you can hit the intro music whenever.
What is up, team, and welcome back to another episode of the Technical Foul Podcast. My mic is trapped somewhere, so I'm trying to untrap it. But I'm Jack Anderson, one of your co-hosts. Sitting to my left is another co-host, Sanders Oakley, and on the phone is another co-host, JP Pusilowski. How you doing, JP? We'll get to you first.
I'm doing well. I am enjoying spring break, final spring break ever, which was weird to think about. My mom just asked me that while we were eating dinner a second ago.
Yeah.
And she asked what I was thinking about this being my last spring break ever, and I didn't really give it any thought.
Sure.
And still haven't given it much thought, but I guess it's surreal, I guess would be the word. But no, I'm doing well. Enjoying doing nothing. Not that I wasn't already doing nothing to begin with,
Sure.
to be honest.
Even more nothing, though?
And then today has been fun.
It's great because now it's accepted for you to do nothing because it's spring break. Like that's what's expected over spring break is do nothing. Everyone does nothing.
It's not everyone's philosophy.
That's crazy. That was always my. Actually, I guess I take that back because I would go on like band trips for pet band, but even that was just vacation, really. You go watch some basketball.
I'm working this week.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
I'm not doing nothing. Let's be real. What I do at my job is nothing, so I will be doing nothing. It will just be masquerading as work, which is a win. But yeah, how are you doing, Sanders?
I'm great. Had a wedding this weekend, and it was a close family member. It was a cousin, and like our family's very close. All of our cousins are very close. We grew up together, so I was an active participant in the setup, the takedown, all of that. So not a whole lot of sleep. And also my house was the place where some people stayed, and so we were up late every night. My brother came and stayed with us. So our house was the hangout house, which was really, really fun. We had a great time with that, staying up late, getting up early. And yeah, it was very, very fun. It was an outdoor wedding, or was going to be, and then it rained, so it was no longer an outdoor wedding. And then both my siblings who live with me went home for spring break yesterday, and so I went and played basketball at Sanderson for 3 hours because I had nothing else to do.
Sure.
And was very tired and slept for like 12 or 13 hours, something like that.
It's pretty good volume.
Yeah. So it was a great weekend though. So ready for spring break, hanging out. We'll hang out because my roommates / siblings are out of town, and then Lucy's out of town, so we're just gonna hang out and watch basketball all week. So it's gonna be a fire week for sure.
Yeah, I'm excited, and I enjoyed my weekend. It was fun. Got some good food. Got to see some family. Got to sleep in. Did have to drive through a rainstorm today, but we made it. So
True.
That's
True.
when you just turn the music up a little louder, and you're in great shape. On the docket for today's show, we'll pivot to actual content now. Well, on the docket was a mock draft, and I'll kind of tell my story of I was trying to finish it up this morning, and as I'm doing so, which we should have thought about this beforehand.
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh, wait, free agency started. Like, I want to go see, like, where big names signed. Like, let me go see what my Commanders did. So I hop on X, and the first thing I see is, the Bucks re-signed Cade Otton. And I'm like, well, in my mock, I have Cade Otton walking in theory, and the Bucks taking Kenyon Sadiq at 15, and clearly that's out the window. And I scroll further, and with each signing, holes are getting punched in my mock draft left and right. So I texted in the group chat and was like, what if I didn't do a mock draft today, and we either just did one on the spot, which I'm glad we didn't do that because obviously signings are still flying in,
right?
Or we just talk about free agency signings and what's still to come, what's happened, who's got released, et cetera, because there's tons to talk about. There's been a ton of deals today. It's one of the more fast-paced free agencies in terms of sports. So we'll hit all the big free agency signings and all the big free agency news as that just started up for the NFL. But before we get to that, we have our weekly Mississippi State sports recap that Sanders will take us through. And that's really all we have on the docket. So, Sanders, whenever you're ready, feel free to take us through the week of Mississippi State sports.
Yeah, this was the final week of the regular season for men's basketball. Mississippi State men's basketball went 0-2. We went to Florida on Tuesday and lost 74-108. And then Saturday, a game that I ended up not working. I didn't work any of the games this weekend. Like I said, I had
Sure.
a wedding, so I missed some exciting baseball, which we'll get to later. But I did not work the basketball game, which we ended up losing 96 to 102, which now makes 5 straight losses for the men's basketball team as we head into the SEC tournament, which, as JP has pointed out, we are only 4 wins away from the making March Madness. Is that correct?
4 wins away.
4 wins away. That's all we need. So 4 wins away there. Women's basketball lost day 1 of the women's basketball SEC tournament to Florida, 68-86. And now, according to Charlie Cream, we are part of the next 4 out. So we are not making the tournament, and I don't know where the team will go from there. Exciting news. Favored Nwadozie, our star forward/center. She plays the 5, but she's really a forward. She's like 6'4", I believe. Has already announced that she's returning for next year, her final year as a transfer from Japan, university in Japan, which is really exciting. I love her a lot. I love her personality, the way she carries herself, and she's just very good. So super exciting news there. In the midst of kind of a tough week of losing the first round and going from last 4 in to next 4 out.
That
So
sounds like a big drop. No, is it just like
5 spots, 6 spots.
Is it just him being Charlie Cream, kind of slowly catching up to the last couple weeks?
I mean,
I know Florida's not good.
Yeah,
but
Florida's not good.
Typically, you don't see big jumps based off of tournament games.
Yeah, but maybe other teams lost in there. I don't know exactly what day I think he posts on Fridays. Maybe that's when he updates it. So maybe
Gotcha.
I don't know
Maybe.
exactly what his schedule is or what games influence that drop, but I didn't think we even belonged in the last 4 in where he had us.
Well, that's kind of what I wonder if it was kind of
Yeah.
him catching up, because it felt like y'all somehow were clinging on to a last 4 in spot
Yeah.
for like a couple weeks despite continually losing games, and y'all
Yes.
never really dropped. So maybe that was a straw that kind of broke the camel's back or opened up the floodgates, but you can continue.
Yeah, so, we're getting close to the offseason for both men's and women's basketball, and both teams will have questions to answer of different varieties, and we'll get to that in future shows, I'm sure, after March Madness when we get into the summer and have nothing else to talk about. But now we get to the sports we're good at, the C-ball, hit-ball sports, as Jack has coined it, as we are a C-ball, hit-ball school. Baseball goes 3-1. We lost our midweek game to Southern Miss, 7-6, and by no other score, no other way to phrase that. We lost 7-6. I was really hoping for maybe a little bit better showing out of the gate, but I believe Southern puts up 4 runs or the first or second, so they come out hot, and we did our best, but just weren't able to close it out and get to the finish line in that game. But Southern Miss is a good team. It was in Hattiesburg. It was a packed house. It was very crowded. So that was another loss that I talked to people since then, and it just I'm not even blinking at it. It's like Southern Miss
Sure.
is a top 10 team. We went to their place and we lost by 1 run. So be it. I mean, great. Not great, but like moving on. Like that doesn't bother me whatsoever. And then this weekend we played Lipscomb at home, outscored them 43-7, including a 26-0 victory in Game 3. And we are now ranked second, as high as second, and the lowest you'll see is ranked as 4th. So baseball is very hot right now. Still only have the 2 losses to UCLA and Southern Miss, and we'll go to Biloxi on tomorrow to face Tulane in I believe it's Biloxi, and then this weekend we'll go to Arkansas and open up SEC play, which I'm really intrigued to see. I feel like the SEC has not looked great out of the gate.
It's been a slow
Tennessee has dropped several. I'd say Texas is the only team that's really living up to expectations, and some people will argue that midweeks don't matter. I would argue otherwise. I'd say if you're consistently losing midweeks or dropping 1 game in a 3-game series to a team that you're supposed to sweep, that is a symptom of, I think, should lead to some concern.
I mean, if you're doing it very consistently, then sure. It depends on frequency. It depends on who you're playing. I mean, like Arkansas just split a 4-game series this past weekend with Stetson.
Yeah.
Obviously, the caliber program Arkansas is, they should not be doing that. But Stetson's a pretty quality, mid-major baseball school. They'll give people trouble pretty consistently. They'll make the postseason tournament. Well, it's
Of
just like
their conference or
like the
okay.
big thing.
yeah,
What's like the name for the tournament?
college. It's
The
just
college
postseason.
baseball, the postseason, I
It's
guess.
just
Yeah, 'cause it's
postseason,
just
I
like
guess.
it's March Madness.
Yeah, college football playoff.
It's college football playoff, and so I quickly was like, I don't feel like there's a agreed
just
upon coinage.
Because it's not, you don't make the College World Series just by making the
Correct.
postseason.
But yeah, they're a quality squad, but
Yeah.
it definitely has been a slow start for the SEC.
Tennessee has not.
I would
looked
like
good.
to say A&M has met expectations so far.
Okay,
We've
that's-
lost one game.
Maybe I did not mean that to be a slight.
UCLA did.
I was more referring maybe to like the upper
Yes,
echelon,
that's very
or the
fair.
expected upper echelon, right?
Florida's really struggled.
Tennessee has
You
struggled
could
out of the
say
gate.
they. I think maybe you could say they make like the regionals every year. That could be like a
Yeah.
term you could use.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Yeah, they're a consistent regional appearance.
Yeah,
school.
that comes out a lot easier than college baseball postseason.
Oh, I literally was like, I
It's
just
like
10
genuinely
syllables.
don't know what to call it. Postseason works too, but I
yeah.
like it, JP.
So I'd say the SEC LSU has dropped a couple I believe 2 midweeks
I
in
think
a
they
row
went
now.
1-4 last week.
Really,
They lost their weekend series.
really, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not not hanging any banners as a regular season champion by any means, but the SEC is going to be interesting this year because teams that were expected to be the elite of the elites haven't looked at that good. A&M, who's probably projected to finish 8th in the SEC, somewhere around there.
12th even.
12th.
depending on where you look.
They've looked good, having only one loss to this
we don't have to
point.
talk about how that loss went down.
Well, yeah,
but-
that's irrelevant. But baseball's gonna be interesting. Softball went 6-0 this week. We went to an Invitational Mobile and went 5-0, and I think it was like 3 days, maybe 4. I didn't look at the specifics of the schedule. And now we are ranked 13th via Softball America. So softball's doing really well. Men's tennis goes 2-0, including a win over number 8 Georgia. And then women's tennis, after getting the huge SEC victory the first in 2 years last week, goes 0-2 this week. I will say that was versus number 8 Texas A&M and number 14 Texas. I don't remember the home and road situation there, but 2 very good tennis programs, highly ranked. And so I'm not gonna once again be like, oh well, man, it's a team that's developing, right? Like I said, they've struggled in the SEC, and so
Yeah.
to get a win, you're not going to go. I believe we went 0-15 last season, and so to go from that, you're not just going to go beat top 15 teams the next year. So it's a continuing development there. But yeah, that is the SEC or the Mississippi State recap. Thinking about SEC baseball, but that's the Mississippi State recap. JP, anything else you want to throw in there at the end?
I do think your point at the very beginning or it was very early, at least in your little monologue, midweeks mattering or not. I think the fact that our 2 losses are to undisputable top 15 teams, if not top 10 teams, and the number 1 team in the country is one of those 2 teams. Both of those games were not in the dude. For anyone to have, not saying there is, but if for anyone to have any pessimistic, views on this team to this point, is just flat out wrong. But the larger point I wanted to make is what a job so far before SEC play is getting started here soon. Brian O'Connor has done to completely turn this team and roster and culture around in just a short amount of time. He so far has completely been living up to what was being hoped of for him as far as what he can complete up until this point. We obviously want him to take us to Omaha every year, but we haven't gotten that far yet in the season. So to this point, he has done an incredible job. And you can see it with the buy-in from the players and the way that they play.
Yeah.
It's been a treat to see. Not to say they haven't made mistakes. We've made a ton of mistakes this year. Ton of running mistakes and some mistakes kind of in key moments as well. But we have played some damn good baseball so far. And SEC play coming up. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I think it's very well said. You're just an idiot if you have any negative takeaways at this point.
Yeah.
At least about the program as a whole or the team as a whole. Maybe you can be like, oh, I had high expectations for this player, and he's maybe you're a big Charlie.
I don't even think that. Maybe Charlie Foster is the only one.
You were
after losing the weekend starting spot, but he's going to get another opportunity Tuesday night against Tulane. He'll start Tuesday. And if he has a great showing, then I think that there's very much still a potential battle for the Sunday spot between him and Duke Stone.
sure.
But I'd say he's the only one you could even begin to make an argument that he's underperformed or underwhelmed. Some people will say Jack Bauer's underwhelmed, but he's a freshman. Everyone's like, well, where's the 102? Where's the 102? Why is he only doing 2 innings? It's like, well, he's a freshman, and he threw like 3 innings a game when he was in high school. It just takes time. So those people, hey, we talk on this show all the time about expectations. I would say those people
Well, they had high
had
expectations.
unfair expectations.
Sure.
Do we want to go ahead and get into some of our free agency discussion?
Yeah, and I think the way you have it laid out, Sanders, if I'm not mistaken, is by team, more or less.
Yeah, so we can. In my notes, I have it by team, and so we can do it in that order if that's what we want to do.
I think we should try and keep it in that order. Best we can. Once again, even more deals can maybe fly in to talk about, but it also lets us go if we're talking about a team and you don't have a graphic made for a move they made, like a smaller move that me or JP want to talk about, we can toss it in there on top of that, or maybe they made another move or something like that. So I think it's at least to try and give this a little bit of structure. We'll try and work through it like that.
Yeah, and some of the players that I have in my notes, I did not make graphics for.
And that's totally fine.
So I'll just throw up the generic free agency graphic when we get there.
Yeah, unfortunately we're going alphabetically, Tucker, so we won't get to the Titans for a while. But the joke on Twitter today has been, man, Brian Dable sure has signed a lot of guys that got him fired.
Yeah.
Not that they actually got him fired.
It's I believe through their first 4 or 5 signings, we're talking about the Titans when we don't want to. So I'll say this, and then we'll get to the first team alphabetically. That they had signed only guys that had played for either Robert Saleh or Brian Dable.
Which we've seen a lot of guys have success bringing in guys they have familiarity with. There were a lot of other issues with the Giants, but it's just funny.
Yeah.
It's a good bit. But let's get rolling. I guess then Arizona Cardinals are first alphabetically.
Yes. So
yes, they are. R becomes QRSTUV. WX,
yes,
Y,
it's in a weird. It's by alphabetical by abbreviation. So that's just how I had it in my notes. But
they got a superstar.
They did.
They got a superstar, at least according to Raheem Morris. Tyler Algier signed a 2-year, $12.25 million deal with them. Has been a very good backup back behind Bijan Robinson the past couple years for the Falcons. Will potentially get a more prominent role in Arizona, depending on how you feel about Trey Benson, James Conner, and such. But yeah, thoughts on that signing? It's definitely not one of the bigger ones of the day, so I don't feel any need to dwell on this.
Well, so go ahead, JP. You start.
I was gonna say, I wonder if this will, eventually actually change what goes on in Atlanta. Which I get a new coaching staff with Kevin Stefanski, and so you should expect it to change.
Yeah.
But what's one thing Bijan Robinson fantasy owners and Atlanta Falcon fans have complained about the most over the past 2 years, and that is the lack of touches for Bijan in critical moments, in drives, in the second half, and stuff like that. And so I wonder how far does this move, where Algier leaves Atlanta and heads to Arizona, swings the needle for the Falcons in that backfield. But that doesn't have anything to do with the Cardinals. We'll get to Atlanta. We have some big moves made by Atlanta. Big moves is definitely a word that needs to be interpreted and see what it means to you. But for Arizona, they needed running back desperately. Like even if they do go with Jeremiah Love at 3, which I think is fully on the board, or they try to trade back and maybe hope he slips back, or they go offensive line. This team, their leading rusher last year was Michael Carter. Michael Carter had just 333 total yards. They had the second least rushing yards in the NFL. They did restructure James Conner's deal, and he's coming back. But he had a broken foot, which sidelined him from week 4 and then throughout the season. So this team needed running back desperately, and they can get a guy who can be a bell cow back, really, in Algier, a guy who can be very physical. Algier had 8 rushing touchdowns last year for the Atlanta Falcons, which this would be like the Eastern version of, Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker kind of feeling, where Algier was stealing the touchdowns at the end, it felt like, from Bijan. So I like the move for Arizona. I'm fine with the money that he's getting paid. And we'll see if he's going to be the lead back, which at this point he is. Will he be a superstar like Raheem Morris, has promised us he is?
Yeah, I like it a lot. Algier was a 1,000-yard rusher his rookie season, and like you said, he can be that bell cow back. He's only missed one game in the last 4 years at Atlanta. I believe that was last season. I think he played 17 games every year, the first 3 years, and then 16 last season. And so you come into that backfield with Connor, who's missed a lot of games, and is sitting at 30 years old. Algier is still only 26, and it's a 2-year contract, so they'll have him until he's 28. I don't mind it at all. The money makes him like he's outside the top 20, I believe, as far as highest paid running backs in AAV go. So I do not hate the move at all. Personally, I think it's really good. The other move they made that I'll just kind of throw is a potential backfield pairing. They brought in Gardner Minshew.
Sure.
Which, as far as quarterbacks go, they're gonna release Kyler Murray. I believe that goes into effect on Wednesday, because they declared it at the start of the new NFL year. And so, Gardner Minshew comes in to compete for the starting job or to have the starting job. The other quarterback there.
All signs are pointing to it's just still going to be Jacoby Brissett.
Okay,
and they signed him to be the backup.
Yeah,
because there was an initial.
I couldn't remember who else was on
maybe
that.
Gardner can start.
Yeah.
But it sounds like they're pretty confident rolling with Jacoby, and Minshew was signed. At least they were forthright with him in that he was going to be the backup.
Yeah.
Crazier things have happened. Maybe
that's a good-
Minshew mania grips a hold.
That's
of
a good
the
quarterback
fall
room
with
when
a
you have
summer camp.
You've got two
Cardinals.
of the best backups of the last 10 years.
Would you just combine them together?
Yeah, exactly.
Jacoby
Not the
Brissett
first
comes out
time
with a
they've-
mullet and a big mustache.
It's not the first time they've been in the same quarterback room either. They were both in the same quarterback room in Indianapolis with the
Yep.
Colts once
Yep.
before.
Yeah.
So they're familiar with each other.
Yeah, I mean they're neither are crazy splashes, but they're in a bit of a transition period. They being the Cardinals, and I feel like they're fine moves to kind of help them through this transition, at least for now. But yeah, they were never meant to be a big player on this free agency. So I think we can go and move on to the next team, who are the Atlanta Falcons, who have had a bit of a busier day. Even if they didn't bring in any big names, they took some volume shots in terms of bringing in a couple familiar faces as weapons. Austin Hooper's back on a cheap contract. Alameda Zaccheaus, UVA legend, started his career in Atlanta and is back. He got a cheap deal. I don't remember the exact terms of that contract.
The Zaccheaus deal isn't out there yet. It
Okay,
hasn't been
cool.
reported what it is.
And then Jahan Dotson comes in, Commanders legend Jahan Dotson, 2-year deal, $8 million-ish a year, something like that. So they already have the wide receiver one. They try to build some depth behind it. I don't know. We'll start there. How do y'all feel about that depth that they've kind of amassed in terms of pass catching weapons behind Drake London?
Well, I can tell you from a Falcons fan perspective what some of these reactions were today for the Zaccheaus and Jahan Dotson grouping.
Yeah.
The words they used were Zaccheaus and Dotson not bad. And so that's a not really an optimistic look, as in it's not terrible, but they would not go as far as say it was good. Now the Zaccheaus and Austin Hooper, I thought it was funny. Those are both former Matt Ryan weapons. Matt Ryan is now acting as a kind of in the football operations role for Atlanta, and he signs two of his former players and his former teammates and weapons.
Someone's like,
I thought that was funny.
Do you think he reached out to Julio Jones?
I have. I would be surprised.
Yeah, definitely not.
But they needed something. Now, I don't think either of these two players move the needle whatsoever. Jack can kind of talk more so to what Jahan Dotson was this past year, or not this past year, but in his Commanders tenure. But for the team, they need some help there. Like Tua needs weapons around him. He's never been a guy who's had a 1 year or just a one weapon to go to, and he's worked there.
Yeah.
Worked with that. Like he's needed Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Devon Achane. Now he's technically you could argue he's got something like that in Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and Bijan. And that's pretty solid. So now you just
Sure.
need kind of supporting cast around them. I don't know how much Tua moves the needle. We can get into that conversation in a second, but they were 19th in passing yards per game, 25th in passer rating, and 28th in completion percentage last year from as a team. And that's across Michael Penix and Kirk Cousins.
Sure.
You add those two together. Now, funny enough, heard this argument from a Falcons fan where I brought up completion percentage being a problem. And they said, well, Caleb Williams didn't complete any passes. And so I went to go look just to double check. And the Bears were a full-on outlier. The bottom 5 teams in completion percentage last year were the Falcons, the Jets, the Titans, the Browns, and the Bears. So the Bears were a full outlier there. And, Tua needs to improve on that. That's not, that's common sense. You complete more passes, you're usually a better offense and a better team. I'm fine with these two weapons. I think, Jack, you can speak more so to Jahan Dotson than I can, but these don't move me whatsoever.
They're definitely not needle movers, and they come in the wake of them releasing Darnell Mooney, and they don't feel like neither of them feel like upgrades to Darnell Mooney, even though Darnell Mooney had a down year in 2025. If you want to read the stats, you have there, Sanders.
Yeah, he had nearly 1,000 yards receiving in 2024, which I remember vividly because I ended up trading him for, I think, Derek Carr in fantasy football because I needed a quarterback. So I traded Mooney for Derek Carr. Derek Carr, JP, did he get hurt in 2024?
Yeah.
Yeah, got hurt. Darnell Mooney goes off for 1,000 receiving yards, and I look like a fool in that fantasy league. But then this last year,
hurt and Rattler replaced him.
Yeah, got hurt this year. And then Mooney had a down year this year, having only 443 receiving yards. It does clear up nearly $7.5 million in cap space. But like I agree with Jack. Like I just don't think that Dotson and Zacchaeus are upgrades over Mooney. I feel like it's more of just, maybe picking your poison, or
They're
you
trying
think
to recreate it in the aggregate, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. You try to save the money that you get by releasing Mooney, and then spend less money to get a couple guys who together you hope can replace that production or get back to that production you saw in 2024.
The problem is they didn't do that though.
Yes.
They saved 7.5 on Darnell Mooney, and then spent 7.5 on Jahan Dotson. 2 years, $15 million, 7.5 per.
Maybe they're hoping.
And then we don't know what Zacchaeus is, but I would assume Zacchaeus is of a similar ballpark, maybe $5 million around the cheapest it could be.
He's probably a little cheaper, yeah. Maybe they're hoping Jahan Dotson still has a little upside in him. In terms of Dotson, real quick, I mix first and last name. Dotson, I think he's a fine receiver as like a wide receiver 3 or 4. It's hard for me as a Commanders fan to like detach the fact that we drafted him in the first round to like what he became as a player, because he is clearly nowhere near a first round quality wide receiver. But he's okay, and same for Zacchaeus. Like you're maybe like a fine wide receiver 4. So maybe they're like, okay, now we can get a wide receiver 2 in the draft. Maybe in the I don't know exactly what their pick. Do they have a second round pick?
The Falcons do have a second round pick. They'll pick just a few picks before the Packers' first pick, the second round pick.
Cool. So maybe they're like
that's the earliest pick.
Maybe like we're going fairly early wide receiver in this draft, and that hopefully is going to be our wide receiver 2, and the room looks a little better.
They will be one of 32 teams to draft either Omar Cooper Jr. or Elijah Surratt, because all 32 teams are taking one of those 2.
So maybe that's their play. But we won't know.
They have 6 wide receivers on the roster now that they've signed Dotson and Zacchaeus. And so I don't think that's the play. Now, the 3 other receivers that aren't Dotson, Zacchaeus, London are, no slight to them, no names who did not play a ton of snaps last year.
Yeah.
So those are very quickly easy to cut, including one of them was a 6th-round pick 2 years ago for them. So they very well, if they like a receiver there, they could go there. But I don't know if that's necessarily like the plan right now. I don't think you sign 2 receivers planning on drafting, one receiver in the draft. I think you would assign just one of these receivers, and spent that money and then save the other one for the wide receiver, because where they're drafting, if I'm not mistaken, it's either 48 or 49. There's so many receivers in this draft. They're going to find somebody there
that can
give them serviceable snaps next year. it's not like it's going to be there's a chance everybody's gone at that point. That would be pretty shocking
Yeah.
if that's what occurs on night 2 on our live stream.
Well, we can get a Falcons fan call, and if it does potentially, I don't want to sit on the Falcons too much, and we are about to talk about the fact they brought in Tua.
Bringing in
Tua, correct.
Which that's the crazy thing is any of these deals technically could fall through.
But the odds they do. I mean,
Correct.
the hit rate on guys like Schefter are pretty good. Deals don't typically fall through, and if it is, it becomes a noteworthy story as is. Thinking this, my point kind of parlays into that conversation of the offense wasn't fantastic last year, put up a lot of duds despite having high-end weapons. They struggled with QB play. They struggled with some consistency from kind of the second-tier weapons. Guys like Darnell Mooney didn't have a great year. Ray McLeod didn't have a great year. And it kind of felt like the biggest thing they needed to address, because their defense, while pretty young last year, actually was pretty good. Now they are losing James Pierce. But now they've gone through at least the start of this free agency, and they're bringing in Tua, and it's do we really think, / should they really think that's going to, actually take their offense up a level?
Yes.
Because I don't. I mean, we just talked about how kind of we're underwhelmed by these wide receiver signings. I know we've talked a lot about Tua on this podcast. I know kind of collectively our opinions on Tua. I don't think it's a horrible deal. He's so cheap.
Right.
You're bringing him in on the minimum, so it's not a horrible swing, but it's also by no means a proven, oh, yeah, this is for sure going to help them get better. It's hey, we can have a hope.
Yeah, I think that they're doing it because we've seen that in a perfect situation, Tua Tagovailoa is a top
pre-advanced CTE.
8. Correct. And I agree with that. But I guess they're willing to take the risk on the minimum, right? No one is going out there and giving him $30 million a year to come in and play quarterback.
Yeah.
They're willing to risk the minimum, because there's not a whole lot of other quarterback options out there. Malik Willis ends up going to the Dolphins. Your other options are Kyler Murray, but I believe where is he expected to go? The Vikings now?
Possibly.
Yeah, so there's not a lot of great options out there. And so I don't
Could have
hate
brought Marcus back, man.
Yeah, I don't hate the decision. You think that you have a better offensive line and a better offensive situation than the Dolphins had last year. And so you bring in the guy who, when he has been at his best and healthy, has been a top 10 production quarterback. You can argue about the production versus whether or not he's a top 10 quarterback, but he's produced like a top 10 quarterback, especially that 2023 season, which
But that's multiple years removed.
that was 2 years ago.
Multiple injuries removed.
Multiple injuries. But I think it's a risk that they're willing to take, and clearly he believes that he can recover, right? I mean, he's still playing football, so obviously he thinks he has something left in the tank. And so I think it's a risk they're willing to take. And it seems like he is as well.
Thoughts on that move, JP?
It just makes me question what their direction is going forward. Are they looking to win the division next year? Are they looking to be competitive? Now, the risk argument in Tua, I don't think there is any risk in signing him to the contract that you did, because it's the league minimum. It literally will cost you nothing. He's already getting paid for. So from a money perspective, I don't think it costs you anything. I do think you're in grave danger if you roll this guy out there as your starting quarterback and say that, we're trying to compete with this guy, because he was 20 touchdowns, 15 picks last year. On top of the 15 picks, he had 8 fumbles. That's 23 turnovers. He averaged just 190 passing yards per game. The weapons are there, so there is kind of no excuse. But he's not a competitive quarterback, and so this is. I don't even think this is a good. This is a bridge quarterback.
That's what I was going to say. Is maybe they are just we signed him for the minimum, and he's just going to start till Michael Penix is back healthy.
The thing is, I hate that, because now you're wasting what will be if I'm not mistaken, either the second to last or the final year of Bijan's rookie contract.
Yes.
Regardless, you're a year closer to having to extend Drake London. You're a year closer to having to extend Bijan Robinson, and you haven't made the postseason. You haven't finished any better than 8-9 with those two elite weapons. You franchise tagged Kyle Pitts for what seems like no reason. Now I guess you're going to see if he works with Tua, and then you can potentially sign him to an extension. But now you're almost like guaranteed looking into next year's drafting a quarterback, unless there's still some belief in that building and Michael Penix, who tore his ACL for what I think is a third time now in his career. So
Yeah. Based on rumblings, it does not seem like they have tons of faith in him, partially because of what he's shown on the field, but mainly due to the injuries and the fact he's already kind of, he's not a young prospect anymore. He's 26, I believe, at this point. So yeah,
it'll be 26.
I think it's a good point. It kind of feels like maybe they're in their heads they're trying to take advantage of a weaker division and like just kind of staying pat. But I think we've kind of learned that if you try and stay pat in a weaker division, someone is going to go out there and make the moves to like actually make them better, and then you end up getting left behind. Let's go ahead and move on to the Ravens.
Yeah, Ravens made a huge move. Bring back Tyler Huntley. No.
Yeah.
We can talk about the actual block, but I would say this is the blockbuster move we've had so far. I think either this or Linderbaum.
No, this is the biggest. I mean, now it's happened multiple times in the past year, but it's not very often you see a team trade 2 firsts for somebody. I feel like that's the bar when it's like truly a massive move. Like Micah Parsons went for 2 firsts.
Yeah.
Sauce Gardner went for 2 firsts. We talked about that being a massive move, and then it quickly
Khalil
crumbled
Mack was
because
2 firsts. Matthew Stafford was 2 firsts.
Yes.
Those were both. I mean, Khalil Mack was 7 years ago. No, more than that. It was forever ago. So I do agree it's not super often, but it's the blockbuster move we've had so far. So go ahead and kick it off.
Yeah, I mean the Baltimore Ravens traded their 2026 first, which is going to be the 14th overall pick, and then their next year's first round pick, the 2027 first round pick, for Max Crosby, who is 29,
yes,
I believe.
29.
And he's under contract through 2029. So they're going to have him at least for 3, assuming everything goes well.
Right.
They could obviously trade, release him, whatever. But assuming everything goes well, they're going to have him for many years to kind of pair with Lamar Jackson and the rest of the team there. But y'all's thoughts on this trade? You feel like it was the right kind of all-in move for the Ravens, and they made it at the right time? I mean, what do y'all think?
It fascinated me personally on both ends. I think it's so fascinating to think about what both of these teams are going to look like, and then the decisions they'll make going forward. For the Ravens to trade a really high value first round pick and the 14th overall pick, which could easily be one of those top 10 blue chip guys falling to them, and they could just do that again. They trade for Max Crosby in what is an admission to that Lamar Jackson doesn't need more weapons, which they can still go after a weapon in the second round, and an admission that Max Crosby can improve that defense, because they were the 3rd least sacks in the league, 30, and they had the 4th least TFLs, 66. Their leading sacker had just 5 sacks last year, Travis Jones. So it fascinates me for Baltimore.
Yeah, and I think that Crosby can come in and immediately be at least the start of an answer to that, especially in a new head coach there, the former DC for the Chargers. He's seen Crosby up close 6 times in the last 3 years, I guess.
Yeah.
Because they play in division, so he's
roughly maybe
actually.
Crosby missed
I'm
one
not
or two
gonna
to injury. I don't know.
I'm not certain how long he was a DC at the Chargers, so I'm not gonna.
Both years with Harbaugh, so 4 times.
Four times, so you've seen him 4 times. And Crosby's been very effective. He's gotten 10-plus sacks in 3 of the last 4 years. The 1 year he didn't. He missed some time due to injury, I believe. I guess that would have been last year. I'm not certain, though. But he's been very effective as a pass rusher. So, I think it's kind of an immediate answer. I don't like, and we don't have to get into this whole conversation. I don't like people saying, "Well, now Lamar Jackson has no more excuses," because this doesn't help him necessarily. Like it does tangentially, right? It helps the defense, but it's not like this is going to make Lamar Jackson play better. It might mean he gets a few more opportunities with the ball a game because you get a sack on third down, but it's not like this is the immediate answer to Lamar Jackson playing better and being like it. I've seen people using that argument, which I don't think is a valid argument. The Ravens may not have any more excuses, but to single out Lamar Jackson, I feel like is a little odd.
I feel like Lamar Jackson already has kind of ran out of excuses.
Yeah.
In terms of just not fantastic postseason performances and whatnot. I just gotta get the job done at some point. Yeah, but I agree that's kind of a conversation for another time. I am interested at like they didn't make the playoffs last year. Obviously, duh, that's well noted. So like, are you really close enough to make the win now move? Which I get there were injuries. But like Crosby's already 29, so like it's not necessarily a thing necessarily where you're like a Micah Parsons type trade where it's like now we have tons of time. This yet again kind of accelerates and reinforces this win now timeline. I applaud Jesse Minter for coming in and being like, yeah, let's go for it while we have Lamar, while we have Derrick Henry. But it's just like it's scary in that sense because you really do. That's kind of when I agree. It's like you don't have more excuses, them being, just the Ravens as a whole, because it's pretty clear you made this. You don't trade multiple first-round picks for a guy that's 29 and really expensive already to not go win the whole thing, or to at least not go to the Super Bowl, right? So that's kind of where I'm at. But I agree, it's fascinating, JP. Have they done anything else?
Like I said, they re-signed
Snoop.
Tyler Huntley.
Yes.
Snoop was 2-0 last year in the two games he got to start.
He's one of the more important backup quarterbacks at this point, I feel like.
Yeah.
In the NFL,
yeah,
so I think it's a great move.
In place of Lamar, yeah, he was 2-0. He came in the Patriots game, of course, won the game against Malik Willis in Lambeau Field against the Packers. So that was pretty critical. Those two wins gave them a chance with the Steelers losing to Cleveland to have that one, the winner take all. The other move they made, I don't know if Sanders already had it, but I'm going to steal from John Simpson, offensive guard, more specifically from the Jets. He's kind of a second-tier offensive guard, and they kind of needed that. Right guard was like an extreme weak spot for them last year. Daniel Falele was like one of the most hated starters by Ravens fans, and he was starting at right guard. He walked in free agency, of course, with the loss of Linderbaum. Simpson, I don't remember if he has any experience starting at center, but maybe he has a chance to move in there. But to shore up the interior of the offensive line, John Simpson's a fine move. I am kind of surprised they haven't spent, any money at wide receiver quite yet. But maybe that is exactly where they're going to attack in the draft with their second-round pick.
Time will tell, and that's, I think, it's a good point to reiterate that we are making all these conclusions and analysis based off an incomplete picture, and we realize that.
True.
So, joke's on y'all. You can't hold me to anything I say, assuming, stuff changes. Obviously, if I say this player is going to suck and they don't suck, you can hold me to that.
That's a good message. Zero accountability here. That's our goal.
Well,
I'm kidding,
if I don't see the vision yet, maybe I'll see the vision after the draft and in 2 months and be bought in.
Yeah.
I can't wait to talk about a team later. I'm having to sit on my words. Gosh, but yeah, let's keep it rolling then. I don't want to necessarily do full breakdowns on every team, especially the ones that didn't really do much. We'll get on to the next team, the Buffalo Bills, who did make a big splash in terms of a trade. They trade for DJ Moore, who had a bit of an iffy year last season for the Bears. Wasn't great. There were questions of like effort, but also it was a very crowded room. He's clearly still a talented wide receiver. I mean, he's had big seasons when he was in Carolina. And so it's maybe a risky trade, but they traded a second and a fourth.
Yeah.
So they were confused because Adam
Second and a
Schefter
fifth.
tweeted fifth, but wasn't it a fourth, or was it the other way and he tweeted fourth and was a fifth?
It was second
Doesn't
and
matter. They traded for DJ Moore.
Yes,
Yeah,
they
they
traded
traded-
DJ Moore. It's a second and then a
Fourth
da-
or fifth.
Yes, a fourth or fifth.
day 3
You
pick.
could
A
say
day three
day
pick.
3 pick. There you go.
Beautiful. I love it. They're finally trying to get Josh Allen like a true alpha receiver.
Yeah.
And so I guess and they paid for it like so.
Yeah.
So my question kind of to give you all the floor is, do you think that that's what they did with this move?
Yeah, I think this is a really good attempt, and hindsight will be 2020 on whether or not it works. But as far as what you had to give up for him, I don't think a second and a fifth is a lot. And also, at his best, he was a 1,000-yard receiver at Carolina. In 2023 and 2024, he had nearly 100 catches both seasons. And then in 2025, he takes that big step back. There's questions about effort. He has 50 receptions and posted a career-low in receiving yards. But it was year one in a new scheme with a new head coach and offensive coordinator. I wonder if other guys, younger guys than him, who were more of who was the head coach of Chicago, the former Lions OC,
Ben Johnson.
Thank you, Ben Johnson. We're more Ben Johnson's guys. He drafts Colston Loveland. So, Johnson brings in all these weapons, and DJ Moore was not a weapon he brought in. It was more of a weapon that was a hand-me-down weapon. It was a weapon that he inherited. And I just wonder if he just didn't fit there.
There's a chance, but if you're a true alpha wide receiver, it shouldn't really matter who else they bring in if you're that good.
Well, maybe Rome Odunze is even more of an alpha wide receiver.
He did not have that kind of season.
Yeah.
But, because scheme does matter, and maybe, him and Ben Johnson just didn't get along. But it is kind of a pause for concern that an offensive savant comes in and you don't really have that good of a year.
Yeah, but I think as far as what they have had to give up and what the potential is, I think this is a great move for the Bills. And you think about last time they brought in a questionable wide receiver, Stephon Diggs. That went really, really well for 3 years. Is that however long he was there? It was a while.
At least a couple.
Several years in Buffalo, and it went really well. So I don't hate this move at all. I'm really excited to see how it pans out. I think he works really well with the weapons they already have there with Khalil Shakir in the slot. So I think DJ Moore is the kind of guy you want to come in and play at the X. And then hindsight will tell us whether or not it was the right move, because if it works, then it was, and if it doesn't, then it was the wrong move.
JP, your thoughts, and then I'll give mine.
I viewed it more so of a Joe Brady going to get one of his guys that also just happens to fit what Buffalo needs, which they need a wide receiver one. DJ Moore can be that. 4 1,000-yard receiving seasons in his 8 seasons in the league, I think that can qualify him as a potential wide receiver one. And they had no trusted receiver on the roster outside of Khalil Shakir, because Joshua Palmer, they signed to a nice contract, but he was hurt last year. Curtis Samuel, they really like, but he was hurt last year. And then Tyrell Shavers tore his ACL against the Jaguars.
Yep.
We don't even have to say anything but his name, Keon Coleman. And then Gabe Davis and Brandon Cooks, at least to this point, have both walked in free agency. They wouldn't bring back Gabe Davis anyway because he tore his ACL against Jacksonville as well.
Yeah.
So I viewed it more so of a Joe Brady going to get one of his guys. And in the year that Joe Brady was the offensive coordinator for the Panthers and DJ Moore was there, he had 1,200 receiving yards, 80 yards per game in the 15 games that he played that year. DJ has also been he's been a touchdown guy. He's been really good at that throughout his career. He's got 40 touchdowns across his 8 seasons. But the last 3 years in Chicago have been 6 touchdowns, 8 touchdowns. So roughly 7 a season. It's pretty solid for a wide receiver. And that's something that they definitely need when they get in the red area. And when they get past midfield, it has been so reliant on James Cook scoring at the goal line, or one of their backs, or one of their tight ends, or Josh Allen, running with his legs. Having a guy who can catch touchdowns across an entire season is going to help spread that out and make them, harder to stop down there on the edge. And their second leading receiver this year was Keon Coleman with 400 yards behind Khalil Shakir. So there was a desperate need there. I don't think they overspent with the second round pick, because you're in a window with Josh Allen, just like we were talking about with the Ravens just a second ago. And so I think you get more value out of the known commodity and a guy you like, literally known commodity, because Joe Brady has called plays for DJ Moore before, over a unknown commodity as good as this wide receiver class is going to be. So I'm all here for it for Buffalo. But I also want to reiterate the point we made with the Ravens, that it doesn't like necessarily change the fact that it's no more excuses regardless. Like, I don't think this heightens the no more excuses conversation with Josh Allen any more than the Max Crosby move does with Lamar Jackson. That was going to be there regardless. And I don't think the level of it changes with these two moves either.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, if you want to be considered a top 3 quarterback in the league, you gotta like make something happen in the postseason. So I agree. The no more excuses conversations were kind of also already there for Buffalo, despite this move. I'm a little wary of this move personally, and I think a lot of it is just due to the fact I'm wary on the Bills' front office and GM as a whole, and so it scares me. Now on the plus side, y'all are 100% right. It's an upgrade. That's undeniable. It's better than what they had, and if I can trust just about anyone in the league to like make a wide receiver great again, it's probably Josh Allen. Like, to help a receiver, re-up his production, refine his groove. It's really not a better person to be paired with. So yeah, I'm good with that. Anything else from
I was
the
gonna
Bills?
throw out a quick. They released Taylor Rapp, which I didn't realize that he got hurt this year. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't watch. I watched some Bills games, but also that
Wow,
safety
JK
room.
is
Yeah, I'm sure. But I remembered him from earlier in the season. And it's just another step in like trying to figure out, I guess, what the Bills' safety room is going to look like in the future, because it was so solid for so many years. They had Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde, and then Poyer played again this year, played 11 games, but he's older, doesn't have a lot left. Taylor Rapp was there. He spent the first part of his career, former Washington Husky, your Washington Huskies. So I'm just interested to see what their starting lineup will be, or what their safety room will look like next season. That'll be something I'll be keeping my eye on, just because it for years was like a staple of the Buffalo Bills, was they had a great safety duo. And then, I feel like they've tried a lot of pairs with DeMar Hamlin. Was he gonna, was his play gonna match kind of the off-field notoriety he had because of his injury and that scare? But he was a starter at least for a while. I'm just curious to see what their starting lineup will look like.
Yeah.
Did say
I still got a difference.
Go for
with
it.
the Bills. They made a ton of moves. They made a few moves today, at least. The Teron Johnson, originally was going to be released, but now they're trading him to the Raiders, and the Raiders ended up extending him, which we'll get to the Raiders in a little bit. They brought back Connor McGovern, but guys like David Edwards, their starting left guard, walked. Again, this was one of the best offensive lines and one of the best running games in the league last year, and David Edwards walked and is now a New Orleans Saint, which I'm ecstatic about. Reggie Gilliam, who's been there for a long time, their fullback, signed with the New England Patriots. They needed backup quarterback now. Mitch Trubisky moved to Tennessee to join Brian Dable once again, which we'll get to Tennessee in a little bit. So, and there's just still a ton of free agents that they have that are out there. Safety's a big one, like Sanders just mentioned. DeMar Hamlin and Darnell Savage are both free agents, but a ton of defensive needs are still out there with Joey Bosa, who's walking. AJ Epinesa is walking as well. And then Matt Milano, a guy who's been a green dot and been there for a long time, is a free agent. So this is a team there's a ton of moves left to make. They got roughly 25 or so free agents that are going to be out there, and they don't have a ton of cap flexibility to begin with. So I'm really curious to see how they manage it, where they backfill in the draft. But they've already lost some key pieces defensively.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to continue to be smart and kind of stingy and execute well and be creative this free agency, because you are right. They're losing a lot of pieces of tons of money to work with. Let's move on to the Panthers, who maybe in one of the bigger splashes of today are bringing in QB competition for Bryce Young and Kenny Pickett. Getting I think a 1-year, $8 million deal to join the Panthers. No, I kid. The big move they made today is they signed Jalen Phillips to a 4-year, $120 million deal. Maybe the most. I'll say he is the most, or was the most coveted edge rusher on the market. I was kind of thinking, like, do I want to give to him or do I want to give to Trey Hendrickson? But Trey Hendrickson's older, and this kind of money to me at least signals that he was the most coveted edge rusher in free agency because 4 years, $120 million is a very steep price tag for a bit of a younger edge rusher. He spent a while in Miami, was traded this season to the Eagles, and apparently the Eagles even tried to re-sign him, but they were outbid by the Panthers. The Panthers, well known. I mean, if you watched any of our mock drafts, we talked about it every time. They were in need of pass rush help, and this was kind of one of their ways of addressing it. So, thoughts on this move for the Panthers?
It was definitely a need, I can tell you that much. It may end up they may still go with a defensive lineman, but we've mocked them both times drafting a defensive lineman. No, Sanders, who did you mock the Panthers taking?
I had him take
remember
C.J.
off the top
Allen,
of your head?
linebacker from Georgia.
Okay.
But he's
But I had them taking
Yeah, go ahead.
Keldrick Falk last week. They had the third least sacks in the NFL last year with just 30. They had the second least pressures, 93, and the fifth least hurries, 38. This is a team that struggled getting after the passer. Their leading sackers were Derek Brown, basically a defensive tackle, and their best defensive lineman. And then Gig'em, Nick Scorton had 5 sacks as well. But other than that, they had no sack production. So, like, Jalen Phillips is getting paid the bag, and he's going to be expected to produce to that bag as well. So the pressure is immediately on him there. And I'm curious to see if he will give that for them. But he definitely was one of the more coveted edge rushers out here in free agency. And Carolina is not afraid to go and spend the money there.
Yeah, I mean, I like the move personally. I mean, the price tag is a little scary, but edge rusher is just one of the most important, one of the most coveted, one of the most just valuable positions. So if you want, a high caliber edge rusher in free agency, you're gonna have to pay to get it, and they did. Like we said, you're addressing a need while doing so. So you can't really hate the move, even if maybe the price tag once again feels a little steep. Anything else we want to talk about with them? Other moves, I know I talked about the Kenny Pickett move. They brought him in to be a backup to Bryce Young. Given Bryce Young's kind of minor durability issues, wouldn't it be surprised to see Kenny Pickett suit up for a game or two and start? Feels like Bryce Young is good to kind of have a 2-game stretch where he's a little banged up and maybe misses some time each year. So there's that. Pieces they lost off the top of my head. We'll get to the Steelers later, but Rico Dowdle signed with the Steelers, so he's officially not coming back, which we kind of already knew he wasn't coming back just based on comments made and whatnot. But any other moves y'all can think of from the Panthers?
No other moves of note. And before we move on to the next team, I said the Bills are going to need to find a backup quarterback. They already did. They signed Kyle Allen, who is Gig'em. He's a really, really good friend of Josh Allen. They're not related. They have the same last name, but they are not related. He and Josh spend a lot of their off seasons together, play a lot of golf together. They just signed him to a 2-year deal. So he will be the backup quarterback for Buffalo next year.
Yeah. Cool. Well, if nothing else on the Panthers, we can move on to the next team. And that's the Chicago Bears, who have had probably one of the more, what's the word I'm looking for? Active days. There we go.
Yeah.
Active starts to free agency. A couple big moves. They trade for Garrett Bradbury. Gave up a 5th to New England for that. They signed Devin Bush today for 3 years, $30 million, to kind of fill a defensive need. And then another defensive need, they signed Kobe Bryant, newly minted Super Bowl champion, Kobe Bryant, to a 3-year, $40 million deal to help in the defensive backfield. Y'all's thoughts on those collections of moves?
I mean, I like it. They're all, well, I was going to say they're all really good players. Devin Bush was a good player this year with Cleveland. So, yeah, he's the one that had the breakout season at
Yes.
Cleveland after the issues. Yeah. I wanted to be sure I wasn't getting my Devin White and Devin Bushes mixed up, the two guys drafted in the same year. But he had a really good season at Cleveland, and so after not having a great start to his career, it looks like the Bears are buying into that with that $10 million a year contract. But I like it. I like the Garrett Bradbury move, right? The Chicago Bears 2 or 3 years ago had one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL, and they took steps to fix that, and Caleb Williams ends up having a good season with some really, really fantastic clutch plays. It gets them to the playoffs and gets them a playoff win. I believe, right? They beat a team. Who did they beat?
The Bears.
Yes.
I mean, they beat the Packers.
Thank you. Beat the Packers and then lost to the Rams. So it gets them a playoff win. And now I think it's wise to continue to invest in that because offensive line is one of those things where you don't just fix it and then leave it alone. You can continue to reinvest and bring in upgrades and take every opportunity you can to try and either find replacements for starters or backfill, right? And, find replacements for the guys that you're going to need in a year or two. So I think it's a very proactive move by the Bears to not just be like, well, the offensive line wasn't terrible this year, so we don't need to do anything with it. I think it's proactive and effective to go out and continue to try and improve one of the most important position groups in football.
I think they're adding pieces to fill the pieces that they lost, and they're doing it very well. Safety losing Jaquan Brisker and Kevin Byard, more than likely. Now, Byard probably has a chance to get re-signed by them, but Brisker for sure. They replaced it with Kobe Bryant, who was pretty low on the list in terms of potential re-signees for Seattle. They cut Tremaine Edmonds to let him walk in free agency, a linebacker. They signed Devin Bush to replace him, a very capable starter. And then their center kind of unexpectedly retires, and they trade for Garrett Bradbury, who is one of the top-end centers, at least in my opinion. So I think they've done a good job in replacing those holes that appeared for them, and I think they managed today pretty well. I'm really excited to see where they continue to go. Their defense needed a ton of help, and so I hope they continue to work on that defense as well. This team allowed the sixth most rushing yards per game. They were bottom 10 in pretty much all of the quarterback pressure stats. They also allowed a ton of yards through the air, including the second most yards through the air, 2,600, fifth most passing touchdowns, 32. What have we seen in the last 2 years winning the Super Bowl? Defenses win championships, the Eagles defense and Seattle's defense. In Chicago, if they want to get to that, and the NFC needs to do that themselves. So they have prioritized that. They were already losing a ton of pieces to begin with, and now I think maybe you hope these kind of pieces can replace, and if not replace, do even better than who was there before. I do want to say, it feels like every single move is a good move, and everyone's going to have that reaction to every single move.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean that every single move will be a good move. So, Kobe Bryant did have questions about, his production. Devin Bush has not had a fully consistent career. He had a really good year last year. Garrett Bradbury is old. If I'm not mistaken, he's 30 or 31. That doesn't mean that the team is just going to all of a sudden get better because they added good pieces. Those pieces still have to fit into their culture and fit into their team. And so I want to caution to everyone's going to say every move is good, except for the bad players signing with bad teams.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
So it can't be the only reaction. It would be my point.
I think it's pretty well said by y'all, though. I mean, I think I like all three moves. I think it's a good start, and I'm kind of excited to see how they build on it through the rest of free agency and the offseason, the draft, etc. Their defense was just kind of middling at best last season.
Yeah.
And I think it went under the radar a little bit because of what a turnaround it was, considering the year before and, what a great year one it was for Ben Johnson. But like I think if their defense put up a repeat performance of that this upcoming season, it would raise a lot more red flags and a lot more people would kind of catch on of like, oh, okay, now that they're not just kind of some fun story, they actually do have some legit issues. So I think it's very smart to try and address it, and I think they have gone about it well so far. Anything else on them? Can we move on to the Bengals? Cool. Well, in terms of moves for the Bengals, they've had a bit of a quieter day in terms of volume, but they have tried to address edge rusher, at least so far in day one of free agency, signing
Boye Mafe.
Boye Mafe. Okay, I knew it was Mafe, but I didn't. I was just gonna say Boy, and I was like, it can't just be Boy. But Boye Mafe, 3-year, $60 million deal for the Bengals. I mean, they've needed pass rush help for years at this point. I mean, they drafted Shamar Stewart last year in the first round. He's had a bad start to his career. They botched the Trey Hendrickson thing this past year. He's now a free agent. He's not coming back. And so this is at least kind of their potential replacement or theoretical replacement for Trey Hendrickson. And so y'all's thoughts on this replacement? What are y'all's thoughts on Boye Mafe?
I can tell you Seattle's thoughts, and they did not think he was someone that they should prioritize in re-signing. In fact, he was the lowest if there was a totem pole for re-signees. He was productive to a degree, but he was not a double-digit sack guy. He had 7 or 6 sacks last year, one of the two. And
He had
for the
2.
money that he had 2 sacks last year.
6 the year before
Even
that.
worse. For the money that they were going to have to pay him, I don't think Seattle was very comfortable with doing that and felt like they could go someplace else. Cincinnati needs a ton of help defensively. That's no secret whatsoever.
Yes.
They were really bad last year. They were the worst rushing defense in the league with just 2,500 rushing yards allowed. That was 2,500 rushing yards, 5.2 yards per carry. They also had the least tackles for loss, 56, and the 7th least sacks with 35. So Mafe can immediately kind of become the piece for them. And I think that'll be combined with whoever they draft in that first round with that number 10 overall pick. I fully expect that to be defense as well, whether that's Ruben Bain or it's Caleb Downs or someone like that.
Sure.
So this is I think a good addition by them. I do think they overpaid for him. I think they could have. You said it was 3 years, $60 million.
Yes.
Yeah, they could have. I think they could have gotten some pieces that had showed more production in the past than Mafe, but I think it's pretty common practice for people to see those players play on a Super Bowl team and be part of that Super Bowl winning culture and want to sign them because they were on the Super Bowl winning team. That must mean they're good.
Yeah.
2, they also were part of that Super Bowl winning culture, and they can bring that to us. And that may be more so of the move for Cincinnati in bringing a guy who was part of the best defense or the second best defense in the league last
Sure.
year, adding him to the worst defense and hoping he can get more out of the pieces around him by the way he either leads by example or leads with his voice. That more so feels like what Mafe would be for them than being the guy who's going to be super productive, like the trade that another team in their division made for Max Crosby and the Ravens. So
Yeah.
that's where I see this move
I think it's
benefiting them more.
a fair point, and realistically, $20 million a year isn't necessarily quite the price tag like an alpha, tier 1 pass rusher costs. They're typically more than that. But Boye Mafe was not some clear edge rusher 1 for Seattle. We talked a ton about how they did it by committee, and so that maybe is a bit of a concern of there's not necessarily a ton of a committee for him to do it with in Cincinnati, but maybe he raises the bar.
I was actually about to hit on that because I wonder if maybe that's their goal, right? Because you spent a first rounder last year on Shamar Stewart. I always get him and Shamar Turner mixed up. Shamar Stewart. You bring in Boye Mafe, then you spend a first round pick on another edge rusher. That's 2 guys of elite pedigree, right? 2 first round edge rushers, young guys, and then
They also have Miles Murphy, who was a first-round pick in 2023 as well.
yeah. So
Add
another
that to the group.
Yep, another young guy. So now you have 3 young guys, 2023, 2024, 2023, 2025, 2026 first round edge rushers. Boye Mafe, this is his second contract, right? So I'm not going to say he's young. He's not, but he was a part of a rotation, and he was productive in that part of the rotation. When he played 800 snaps as an edge rusher, he hit 9 sacks, so almost double digits. Close only counts on horseshoes and hand grenades, I know. But all that to say, maybe that's what they're kind of trying to recreate, because I think you don't feel good, but you think that, all right, if we have 4 edge rushers, 3 of them former first rounders, and 1 of them who we brought in free agency, we like the winning culture like JP was just talking about, we like that he won a Super Bowl. Well, now we think maybe not this year, because Shamar Stewart is only going to be a second-year guy. Whoever you draft, I do think it's going to be edge rusher still, will be a rookie. But next year, like maybe we're in the Seahawks position, where we're in the final year of what was his name, JP, the 2023 first rounder?
Miles Murphy out of Clemson.
Right, so maybe Miles Murphy is our Boye Mafe, right? We're in his final year. He's a productive piece. He rotates in, rotates out. And with those 4 guys, they're able to create an effective defensive line. Maybe that's what they're thinking, is that you don't need a Trey Hendrickson or a Max Crosby or a Myles Garrett or a TJ Watt, but you can have 4 guys who are really good, and maybe even the first round of this year turns out to be elite, and that's enough.
That's just so many hoops to jump through, though, and it's giving a lot of credit to a front office that has not done a lot of.
But
good
your other option
over
is to give up
years.
2 first-round picks for Max Crosby when you have a lot of other holes you need to fill.
I don't honestly hate the move, but also I'm not optimistic about this being a move that really sparks some great turnaround for a kind of a team that's been drifting a bit as of the past couple seasons and are wasting an elite talent at quarterback at that. So I don't know. I'm pretty jaded on the Bengals as a whole, and will probably continue to be so until they prove me wrong.
I personally think the Jessica Alba, Joe Burrow is a bigger story than this. In my opinion, I don't think Mafe moves the needle.
Sure.
I appreciate Sanders, though, going those lengths to try and create some kind of potential explanation.
Optimism?
Yeah, some optimism
Sanders
for the
has always
team.
been the bit of the Bengals optimist on this show. I mean, he
Yeah.
had him making the playoffs.
I had him winning 13 games
had
last
him
season,
winning a lot of games last season.
which I'll stand by if Joe Burrow doesn't get hurt. Maybe that
Um,
happens. You don't know.
Maybe. I doubt it, but maybe. Let's move on to a divisional opponent of theirs, and that's the
Yeah.
Cleveland Browns. Signed Zion Johnson to a 3-year, $49.5 million deal today. Did I do something wrong?
No, it's funny that we're about to talk about Zion Johnson and the big deal he got to go play for the Cleveland Browns.
For the Cleveland Browns. I mean, they had to sign somebody,
Prayers up
right?
for Shedeur Sanders. Prayers up for Shedeur Sanders.
They had money to spend, and they had to spend it. And so this is how they've, at least so far, decided to allocate some of their funds. Thoughts on, I don't feel like there's tons to say, but thoughts
There
on this
isn't.
move? Yeah.
Sam Monson said it best. I was watching him and Steve Palazzolo they were streaming all day, breaking down news live as it was coming out. And when he saw that Zion Johnson signed with the Cleveland Browns, his statement was, "Yeah, whenever I need offensive line help, I usually try to source it from the worst offensive line in NFL football," which I think is the best way to put it. There are some now. That's the negative side. The pessimistic view is to say, well, Zion Johnson was a member of the worst offensive line in NFL football this season, one of the worst we've ever seen.
So he must reek.
And so he must be awful. However, as the optimist on the show apparently now, I'm going to spin it optimistically and say that this is his second contract. He's a former first-round pick, so he has talent, right? Scouts saw something in him, and clearly that hasn't clicked or it hasn't been put on display at the NFL level yet. But that's traditional for offensive linemen. Offensive linemen often take 3 to 5 years to hit their stride, to become NFL offensive linemen. Rarely, sometimes you do, but rarely do you see guys who year 1 or 2 look elite. I'd say Penei Sewell is one of those guys who year 1 or 2 was elite. It's rare that someone comes in and is incredible off of rip. And Zion, and so the optimistic view is to say, well, he's a former first-round pick. This is his second contract. We're not paying out the wazoo for him, right? He's not getting elite guard money. You're not paying him like one of the best guards in the NFL. You're paying him not cheap money, but you're paying him as an unproven guard who's a former first-round talent. Like, I think you're paying him appropriate money because there's upside in that free agency signing, and there's upside because of that talent and the hope that he hits as other guards and other offensive linemen often have. So that's the optimistic view. As a Chargers fan, I'm just going to say good luck.
Yeah, that seems once again very optimistic. It just seems at this point, and it's kind of how it's been. Like, if you're an offensive lineman and you are healthy, you can make some money. Like, someone will be like, "Yeah, we got you. Come here, come play for us." Any thoughts on Zion Johnson to the Browns, JP, or can we keep it moving?
I no thoughts on him, but they did sign Sheldon Rankins,
Okay.
defensive tackle from
Yep.
the Houston Texans,
I like
to
that
a
a lot.
2-year deal. So another added piece on that defense that was really, really good last year. I do think that, they've already done Zion Johnson and now Titus Howard.
Yeah.
With the trade with the Houston Texans, signed both of them the contracts. This team has got to go, I think, offensive line with one of those first 2 first-round picks, and infuse some young talent. And just because it doesn't seem like a lot of people want to sign there, clearly.
I wonder
so
why.
force them by drafting them to a 4-year contract, which, again, they don't have to necessarily sign. They can hold out,
Yeah.
which is now becoming more of a custom. But, yeah, they gave up 51 sacks last year, and they had the 6th least rushing yards last year. They need help on the offensive line. I think they have to spend one of those first 2 picks on them, which is 6 and 24.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I mean, I had him going offensive tackle at 6 in my my mock that'll never see the light of day.
Yeah.
From this morning. So,
I think we should post it sincerely and just see how people react.
oh gosh, please no. Let's move on to the Dallas Cowboys then, who kind of broke a recent trend of theirs, and that's actually paying for or shelling out money for free agents, which I actually don't see it on the list here. So I'm gonna.
Yeah, it may not be up to date as
No,
other
you're
stuff
good.
has happened.
I mean, they re-signed Javonte Williams. They did that
Yes.
earlier. They franchise tagged George Pickens. They tendered Brandon Aubrey, and he's still kind of expected to come back. But if not, they'll get a 2nd-round pick for him. And they traded for Rashawn Gary for a 4th-round pick, which personally seems a little steep considering he probably was going to get cut. But maybe that was just the market for him. Other people were offering 5ths or whatnot, and so they had to, they had to hop in and get in there. Jalen Thompson, that's who. Yeah, signed
Yes.
Jalen Thompson, the safety, was at the Cardinals last year, but they signed him to a 3-year deal worth a maximum of $33 million. Notable for many reasons. One, it's the first time they've given out a double-digit AAV in free agency since 2020, I believe. And also, they have at least started the process of addressing a very horrendous defensive back room. It's a good step in the right direction there. But thoughts on their collections of moves, thoughts on their offseason so far, either of y'all?
I mean, I like it to this point. I do get the Rashawn Gary thing, but I think people have been a little bit overreacting and saying, well, like, he was literally about to get dropped. Why did you trade for him? Well, you trade for him so you don't get into a bidding war with other teams. You now have him, right? You don't have a chance at getting him. Now you have him. So I think that's the first thing is people were overreacting in that sense. Now you can get upset about how much you traded for him. And, that comes down to, well, maybe the Packers were just not willing to trade him for less. Maybe there were other teams offering 5ths. So I don't hate the process of trading for a guy, even if you think that there was a chance he was about to get dropped. I don't hate that aspect of it. And then the George Pickens thing, and I think we've talked about this in the show, so I won't dwell on it, but George Pickens gets tagged. George Pickens is, I feel like, one of the most, I don't want to say emotional, but like fiery players, hot and cold. I don't know how to describe it. There are people who are worried that his being tagged will mean that he plays poorly. I'm not too worried about that. I think that he's going to play well because the offense works really well together. It worked really well together last year. I like bringing Javonte Williams back. His deal is a little bit more than the Tyler Algier deal. I think his was a $6 million AAV. Williams is $8 million. So I think that's good. He was effective, especially I believe in the first half of the season. He was one of the leading rushers in the NFL. Is that right?
Yeah, he was a 1,000-yard rusher this year for them.
Yeah.
Which was a surprise. I mean, a lot of people, I think, thought that running back room was going to be potentially pretty fluid. maybe even
Yeah, I mean, I
like
thought it was going to be
Jadon
by
Blue.
committee, basically, and it was not at all.
Yeah, or maybe Jadon Blue would kind of take over at some point in the year. So he was really productive this year. The Pickens tag, and now with the signing of Jalen Thompson, which I'll go ahead and say first, they needed to sign someone like Jalen Thompson to the deal that they had. They allowed the most points per game as a defense, 30. Second most yards per play, 6.1. And then their DBs allowed 29 touchdowns last year, which was
Yep.
the most in the NFL. They had just 5 picks by defensive backs, the second worst in the NFL. Of course, the Jets had 0 picks. So,
Shout out the Jets.
and they allowed the most fantasy points per game to wide receivers last year, which everyone knows in fantasy football last year, if you were playing the Cowboy or if you had a wide receiver, you were looking to see when they played the Cowboys so that you could start them that week. So the Jalen Thompson signing was completely needed, but them spending the money there as opposed to, drafting one of those pieces, which they may end up doing regardless with one of their first round picks, it makes me kind of scared I don't think they're never going to extend George Pickens, meaning they'll franchise tag him this year. They probably will. I would imagine they probably will franchise tag him again this year or next year, I should say. And so the emotion thing that Sanders was bringing up, I don't think it'll play this year, but I think fully next year we'll just have another Cowboys player contract negotiation that is taking over the media world for a month. Micah Parsons, CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott have been the 3 that we've seen. I don't think it will affect him as much this year. At least I hope. There's a little bit of copium there. But Dak said that he told George, you're getting paid like almost 5 times as much as you were getting paid last year. Be happy with that. Like, you're getting paid a really good amount of money to be a receiver for this team, and you're one of the best receivers in the league, and we need you. So I don't think it'll affect him this year. But I do think going forward with the money they just committed to Jalen Thompson, it's going to be even harder to sign Pickens to a long-term deal.
Sure. I think that's fair. Last thing I have on the Cowboys is any comment on Dak, in his true aversion to yet another ring.
Yeah, apparently she wouldn't sign the prenup.
Apparently that's
So-
not true, according to what came out today.
Yeah, I don't know.
Who knows?
I actually don't know.
I
what
just thought the jokes were funny.
Yeah.
The jokes are kind of funny, but at the same time, knowing Dak's story and his entire life and everything that he's gone through, it saddens me to see stuff like that, to hear news like that. I hope that, he's doing well. A lot of people are going to say, oh, this is just going to motivate him and allow him to focus on football. And as much as we love to talk football on this show, it is, it's not going to just be the only thing in your life. Like, you can't fully get away from your life and fully dive into football. You're still going to have quiet moments throughout the day where you got to handle stuff like that. And now Dak has 2 kids and
That's what I was going to
is
say.
going to have to co-parent on top of that. I hope it doesn't affect him and his play and his character, because he is truly one of the greatest character guys in the NFL. There's a reason he won Walter Payton Man of the Year. Like, this guy is just, he's unbelievable. I've loved him since he's been here at State. Everyone has. And he's done amazing things for the Dallas Cowboys under unbelievable scrutiny. And so it saddens me to see another unfortunate setback in his personal life. And I hope it's not getting to him. And I hope he knows how loved he is by us here in Starkville and State fans and Cowboy fans and just football fans in general. And I hope he's doing well going forward.
Cool. I was not ready for a ringing endorsement of Dak, which I guess I shouldn't have been surprised. But yeah, let's keep it moving. Then Denver Broncos. We're still only in the D's, which is a little tough, but we'll keep it rolling. Biggest news of the day, I'd say, for the Broncos is re-signing J.K. Dobbins to a 2-year deal.
Yep.
But they released Dre Greenlaw,
Yeah.
and they re-signed
Alex Singleton and Justin Strenad. So
So a lot of kind of
keeping guys in house,
that's what. It looks
except for Dre Greenlaw, who they kicked out of house.
It's just housekeeping, basically.
Yeah.
Let's
Hey, don't forget they re-signed Sam Ellinger, who I know you don't like as an A&M fan. I liked Sam Ellinger a lot in college. I just liked the way he played. He was very gutsy.
Kellen Mond drafted higher than Sam Ellinger. That's
Yeah.
a win.
Is Kellen Mond still in the league?
No, but Kellen
Okay,
Mond,
cool.
you know, is doing big things for the San Antonio
Battlehawks.
Banderas, I think.
Okay.
I don't actually know. They may be the Battlehawks. No, that's St. Louis. The St. Louis team's the Battlehawks.
Okay. But yeah, JP, what do you think about the Denver Broncos and their housekeeping? No big signings, no big moves. What are your thoughts?
J.K. Dobbins was like a must.
Yeah.
They were a really bad team from running the football perspective when he was out. In fact, they had 5 games with less than 90 rushing yards without him, including both of their playoff games. So re-signing him was really, really crucial, and I'm glad that they figured that out. When your defense was as good as it was last year, there's no reason to not bring back the pieces that may be leaving. So a guy like Alex Singleton's completely fine re-signing for me. And he's one of the only guys that was a free agent. He was also the green dot last year, meaning he was the guy who's calling the defense and the plays and hearing the plays from their defensive coordinator, who I just forgot the name now off the top of his head. Very well-known defensive coordinator.
Yeah, I literally also
Oh gosh.
hold up. That's so. We are a terrible show when it comes to just remembering names, and it's really sad.
Well, there's too many names to remember, man. I feel like I do a pretty good job. So
It's all you're always
forgive
gonna
me
drop
for
some.
forgetting that. But he was like the only
Vance
free agent
Joseph.
they had from
Vance
a defensive.
Joseph.
Vance Joseph. There you go. He was one of the only free agents they had from a defensive perspective, and so re-signing him on top of the fact that he was the green dot, I'm all here for it. And yeah, I'm good with the day that they had. It's fine to have a quiet day, but J.K. Dobbins was kind of a must, and I'm glad he's coming back for that Denver offense because they needed help on the running back front.
Sure.
If J.K. Dobbins was gone, it was going to be an interesting story and maybe like a spot where they go with their first round pick with a guy like Jadarian Price.
Yeah.
It changes. It could potentially change mock drafts going forward. That kind of move.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with everything it did.
I
No
will-
big splashes.
Yeah,
but
I'll be interested
necessary
to see.
moves.
Sorry, I was
you're good.
kind of interrupting you. I'll be interested to see if they make any other moves when it comes to running back, just because Dobbins I don't think has he played one full season in his career? Is that right? I'm trying to look.
I'm pretty sure he had one with Baltimore. I feel like he had one in his rookie year and then did in his second year. But
It looks like
he's dealt with injury concerns 100%.
Yeah. His year with the Chargers was not a full season. 2023 was obviously not a full season. 2021, he missed the entire season. 2022 was not a full season. Was 2020 his rookie season? So his rookie season, it looks like he played a full season. So I'll be interested to see if they make any other moves to try and bring in a running back, whether that is another free agent or they spend another later draft pick on a running back. Not this class is unfortunately not as good as last year's class and not as deep, but that's something I'll be interested to see just because I kind of called it when they drafted Harvey, and I said it in somewhat of a joke. I think they took Harvey in the second round, third round,
Correct.
Yeah.
second round.
Second.
And people were like, well, why are they doing this? Why are they doing this? And I was like, well, they're doing it because when J.K. Dobbins gets hurt, they're going to need a running back. And he did end up getting hurt, unfortunately, and then Harvey had to be the starter. I wonder if they'll take another opportunity on a running back to kind of plan for that event because it has now happened in 5 out of 6 seasons.
Yeah, that's not really what you want to see in terms of durability at all.
Not at all.
Let's move on to the Lions.
Yep.
The Detroit Lions. So far, the free agency has really been focused on retooling the offensive line. They released Taylor Decker, saves them a little over $11 million in cap. They obviously had Frank Ragnow retired last season.
Yeah.
Tried to come back, couldn't come back. Re-retired. No.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I was pretty sure re-retired, but I was like making
Well,
sure
I don't
he
know
didn't,
if he
like,
ever re-retired. He just didn't come out of retirement.
Yeah, fair.
Now, I don't know if he's attempting to get into shape to come out. That I have no idea. And I imagine that if he does, no one knew that he was trying to come out of retirement the first time. I imagine it's just gonna be like, oh, by the way, the Lions have announced that Ragnow's coming back. If it happens, I imagine it'll be something like that.
Yeah. Well, so far today they've signed Cade Mays to a 3-year deal, former Panthers center, and then Larry Borum, a kind of more experienced tackle. And I'll just say, if these are the only types of moves they're intending on making to fix the offensive line, and these types of moves, by that I mean depth moves, it's not going to work. It's not going to fix and revamp and get that offensive line back to its 2023, 2024 glory. So maybe they're looking to address it more in the draft. Maybe they still have something else up their sleeves, but surely this is just kind of the start and not all that is coming.
Yes. They also, we can talk about this a little bit for the Lions. They trade David Montgomery. We'll talk about it more in
Sure.
depth when we get the Texans, but it was a move. They get Juice Scruggs back, but they also get a 4th-round pick and then a 7th-round pick for 2027. So not huge draft compensation, but for a running back to get an offensive lineman and then to get a 4th-round pick, I feel that's not terrible value, especially when he's really he's not your primary running back like Jahmyr Gibbs is your primary. Montgomery played a huge part and played a lot of snaps, but if you had to pick a running back going forward, you would pick Gibbs over Montgomery.
Yeah, what's his contract like? Like, how much money was he making?
That I do not have that in front of me.
Because I'm just like,
I'll
I
pull
feel
it
like
up.
that's also part of the reason they had
Or
to
you
do
got
it.
it,
It's
you
just
got
like as guys are getting more expensive and they have
Yeah.
to pay some of their cornerstones, like
Yep.
you had to cut costs somewhere, and you just simply can't pay a backup running back $9 million a year is about what it was, which like actually isn't anything crazy. He made $8 million last year. He's only making 5. Okay, he's not actually making as much as I thought he was. So maybe that's not really why they did it.
Yeah.
But I mean, even still, a little money saved anywhere it can be important for teams that are in bad cap space shape. So.
Yeah.
Anything on the Lions, JP?
Look for them to go offensive lineman with that 1st-round pick.
Yeah.
We talked. They already made the move for Cade Mays and another offensive lineman, but Taylor Decker retired, or not retired. He requested to be released and was released. Graham Glasnow was released. Dan Skipper retired. They have a need at left tackle. Monroe Freeling or someone else. I think most ideal would be Monroe Freeling. Is probably the most true left tackle of anyone out there.
Sure. Just gotta hope he gets there.
But every
then.
time we're going to bring up the Lions and especially offensive linemen, I'll go ahead and say the stat that shocked me and would probably shock most people that Jared Goff was hit the most out of any quarterback last year, 76 times. And that's a guy who doesn't scramble.
Yeah.
So they need some offensive line help. And I expect them to do that with that 1st-round pick.
Good point. All right, next team, the Green Bay Packers. Kind of big moves they've made so far. They released Elgton Jenkins, something I did not expect.
Nope. It really, you go ahead and finish off, then I'll.
Yeah, I mean, it saves them a good bit of money in cap, but I feel like he was a nice little versatile piece on the interior line. And then they also traded for Zaire Franklin from the Colts. Gave up Colby Wooden in that deal. They've not done anything like massive yet in terms of additions. I think Zaire Franklin's a fine piece. But I'm interested to see what else they have up their sleeves. Any thoughts on the Packers free agency so far?
Yeah, the moving on from Elgton Jenkins really not necessarily surprised me they moved on, but it surprised me they didn't trade him. And maybe it did just come down to they wanted to clear out a lot of that cap space. But the versatility he provides, and not just he's good. He's a good interior offensive lineman. And maybe he's not as good as he was, 2 or 3 years
when
ago.
the Packers fans show up and be like,
Right,
he
right.
actually is like really fallen off.
Yeah.
But
also, it's the NFL, and offensive line is one of the hardest positions to find depth at or to find starters at because you need so many of them. And so to not try and move him at least, for some sort of draft pick kind of surprised me. But that's really the big thing. I feel like they haven't made a whole lot of moves.
Well, they haven't signed anybody.
Yeah, they haven't made a whole lot of moves.
Extended Chris Brooks, a depth running back. But the Elgton Jenkins release saved them $20 million in cap space. So I think they, as good as he is, state legend, Elgton Jenkins
Right.
it saves them $20 million in cap space, and they can go spend that somewhere else. And on a different piece. And he's an older guy as well. He's in his 30s already. So I'm completely fine with them releasing. I understand the argument though for trading him. Maybe
Yeah.
they just couldn't find a market,
And
and they
it,
wanted to have the money right now so that they could try and go after people.
Sure.
Which they didn't end up signing anybody, but
There's
Right.
still
maybe
time.
that's what they were.
there is
looking
still
at.
time, but it's like you cleared up 20 million in cap space to turn around, and right now you haven't signed anybody. So to turn around and not sign anybody, and the people that are available, like it's kind of like we talked about with releasing Darnell Mooney to sign Zacchaeus and Dotson. It's like, well, like I like the process of cut this guy to clear up a good amount of cap space, a reasonable amount of cap space, and then to try and turn around and invest that in replacements potentially for that guy. But it's just like, well, who is available? I mean, top of available offensive guard, Elijah Vera Tucker is still available. I wonder what his expected value is.
Yeah.
I
Probably
just
roughly 10 or so million. I do want to say though, like they don't have a lot of flexibility to make a ton of moves. They are about to this year. They'll see Jordan Love's number go up to 36, but then over the next 2 years, his number will go up to 44 and then 75 million.
Jeez.
Micah Parsons' number is 19 this year. It'll increase to 27 and then 42. They don't
Yeah.
have a lot of flexibility to sign guys to long-term contracts. So right now they're looking for guys for 1-year deals to fill this, what is right now roughly 30 or so million in cap space. They can only really assign guys to 1-year deals, or further, risk them being in some kind of cap hell going forward. They're already going to have a void year of Jordan Love of 31 million in 2029. So like they don't have a lot of flexibility in the future to sign the deals that have been popular today. The 4-year 100 million, the 3-year 36 million. They don't have that kind of money to throw around in the future. They have it now, but they don't have it in the future.
I think that's a good point. Something to kind of keep in mind and provide context. Let's keep moving, though. Let's get on to the Texans. We just mentioned the David Montgomery trade when we were talking about the Lions. But they traded for David Montgomery to kind of beef up that running back room. They also, which everyone saw this coming, but they released Joe Mixon with whatever injury he has going on. He didn't play at all last year. I think there's reason to be excited about Woody Marks as like a secondary back, kind of, a solid back, but he was not really an impact back and, struggled to have consistent high yardage games, which maybe was the offensive line, whatever. But regardless, I think it was a position we all thought they needed to upgrade, and so they go out and upgrade it. They trade Juice Scruggs, a 4th-round pick this year, and then a 7th-round pick next year. And then on top of that, they signed Reed Blankenship today, which is probably one of the more surprising moves of free agency for me. I mean, I know if they were going to go somewhere and upgrade their defense, it was going to either be safety or defensive tackle, but I didn't necessarily expect them to go give out a multi-year deal to a safety, but they did that. But those are kind of their moves so far. Thoughts on them?
Yeah, I mean, bringing in Reed Blankenship is like the perfect example of making a strength stronger, I guess. And so you take that elite defense. I mean, I think you called it probably the best defense in the NFL last year. It was just a fantastic defense. And you go out and get Reed Blankenship, who was a part of one of the best defenses in the NFL 2 years ago when they won the Super Bowl. I mean, that's a move I like. You put him in that backfield with Derek Stingley and Kamari Lassiter, and it just becomes very scary for opposing offenses. But the issue is, I mean, can the offense keep up with that? They've the only offensive investment they've made so far is bringing in David Montgomery, unless I'm looking to see if something's happened since in the last couple hours.
Well, they sent Titus Howard to the Browns, so they moved on from yet another offensive lineman that
Re-signed
started a
Dalton
bunch for them
Schultz,
last
re-signed
season.
Trent Brown. So they re-signed a tackle and an offensive guard, re-signed EJ Speed, a linebacker, extended Danielle Hunter, re-signed Sheldon Rankins. So no big investments on the offensive side of the ball, unless you want to call David Montgomery a big investment, but I don't think he's a fixes the offense kind of investment. So that's something I'll be interested to see is their goal just to hold opponents like 6 points a game?
Maybe it is. I mean, I think they'll probably make another move or two in free agency based on the offense, and then they'll be able to really attack it in the draft.
Right, which
as
they
good as
haven't given
possible.
up anything in the draft yet. They still have their first rounder,
Yes.
which isn't a great first. They'll pick 28th, so it's not. They're not picking from the best to the
Sure.
best at that point. So, what are your thoughts, JP?
I'm fine with them not making huge splash moves. They already tried that. They tried that with Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs ended up tearing his ACL, and it went poorly. They tried that with Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon had his foot injury stuff, and that went poorly. I think they're more hesitant to spend a ton of money there, and I'd argue they spent a fair amount of money already. $7 million on Trent Brown, $12 million on Dalton Schultz, $12 million on their offensive guard Ed Ingram. So I do think they've spent some money there. They, brought in David Montgomery to what they hope shore up their running back field. I think they can convince themselves that they've done enough there and they can address a few more pieces in the draft. I wouldn't, bat too much of an eye to the, I guess some might argue, lack of splash moves offensively. I do think they've done enough so far, and we're still through only one day of free agency.
I mean, it's really just going to come down to the draft for them, and if they nail the draft or not. But moving on, technically Jacksonville is next. I don't feel like Jacksonville has really done anything yet.
I don't think so either.
We're kind of, I feel like one of the free agents a lot of people are still waiting on is Devin Lloyd.
Devin Lloyd.
Devin
yeah.
Lloyd, kind of where he's going to end up. They lost Travis Etienne.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to the Saints. We'll get to the Saints later, but that is kind of something tangentially related to them. Anything on the Jaguars? If not, I'm going to keep it rolling on to the Chiefs.
Nothing.
The only move they made was they re-signed Monteric Brown
Okay,
to
yeah.
a 3-year, $33 million extension, $11 million per year for a corner. So that was the only move they've made so far, besides letting guys
Sure.
go. They don't have a lot of cap. We talked about them
Yeah.
in the off season. In fact, they were negative $11 million. So they were not in a great spot. The franchise tag was something they considered with Devin Lloyd, but that time period has obviously passed with last week.
Yeah.
So they just don't have a lot of flexibility to make any moves.
Yeah, they're in a tough spot in that regard because of that, and they don't have their first-round draft pick. So it's not even like they're can rely on get in and take a swing on some elite talent in the draft. I will say there's been some potential buzz about them potentially trading Brian Thomas, though personally I don't feel like that's going to come to fruition. We can move to the Chiefs though, and this was probably one of the more like.
Is it not the Colts?
Yes, I apologize. I actually skipped the Colts. The Colts were before the Jaguars.
Crazy.
But I just ride over them. I guess I just don't care about the Colts. I apologize to Larry. Yeah, the Colts transition tag Daniel Jones. They're still trying to work out potentially a long-term deal for him, but the reports are he's asking for $50 million a year. So Danny Dimes or Indiana Jones, whatever you want to call him, that just seems a little much. But go try and get your bag, coach. But they did that. They re-signed Alec Pierce. He supposedly took less money to come back, if you want to choose to believe that or not. And they signed Arden Key to a 2-year, $20 million deal. A lot of pretty expected stuff from them. I mean, obviously, we've known about the Daniel Jones transition tag for about a week now. All the rumors were they were going to try their hardest to keep Alec Pierce from going elsewhere, and they succeeded in doing so. So from that standpoint, it seems like they've kind of hit on a couple of their biggest goals. But y'all's thoughts on their moves?
I didn't get the. I mean, I guess I get the Michael Pittman trade, and we'll talk about that more in depth with the Steelers.
Sure.
I'll just be interested to see now that wide receiver room,
What did they get for in that trade again?
like
Just
a
some
late round
late
pick
round
swap.
pick
There's-
swaps.
So they'll
Yeah.
get like
They did that so they could sign Alec Pierce because it freed up cap space on Pittman, who is worth like 20 plus next year.
right, but I just feel like Pierce is the deep threat guy. He's not the.
I feel like that's selling Alec Pierce a little short. I feel like he kind of somewhat branched out from that last season, and that's at least the expectation. I mean, you don't talk about a deep threat, just a straight up deep threat getting like $27 million in free agency or anything like that.
Yeah.
He clearly has more to his game than that. I
Did
obviously
you say 27? He's a year or total?
No, but I'm just saying like that's like the talks what he potentially was going to get
Oh,
from
yeah, yeah.
teams is like, oh, you may have to pay Alec Pierce $27 million a year to get him. Obviously not quite the amount,
Yeah, he's making less than 10.
but supposedly he took less to come back. So that's all I'm going to say
There
there.
is no way that he was getting offers of $27 million a year.
When you start catching passes from Danny Dimes,
signed for
you just
less
fall in
than
love.
10.
You just fall
That
in
is
love.
just. I've seen a lot of discourse, especially from Sam Monson, talking about how he hates the.
Well, he got $29 million a year from the Colts.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's just no
Wait,
way he
then
got
where did I get mine?
$37 million a year. Like I was like, that just can't be
No, no.
right in the notes.
That's not. Maybe I.
Yeah, 4-year, $116 million contract extension. He's
You
getting
were-
$28 million.
Oh,
a year.
I see. I apologize. I accidentally typed Daniel Jones transition tag twice, and so I have 30. That makes a lot more sense.
I
do
thought I was going
apologize.
crazy. I
yeah,
was like, I
let
don't.
me change my notes. What did you say it was? It's
4 years,
4 years.
$116 million. I was gonna say he got a legit bag.
I'm sorry, that was a typo on my part. That makes a lot more sense, and that does that value does stand out more as a realistic. Maybe he was getting $27 million a year.
That's legit wide
Offered.
receiver one money.
Correct.
Correct. So he better come through and like really deliver
Exactly,
and be
yeah.
that top tier target. And there's not tons else in the room right now.
Right.
Maybe something they address in the
And
draft to kind
no
of fill in
first round
behind him.
pick. No first round pick to try
Well,
and do that.
Elijah Surratt's available in the second round.
Exactly.
For them to take.
We now, I
so.
think, have that's 19 teams that are
Sure.
drafting Elijah Surratt or the other Omar Cooper Jr. in the second round.
Well, now we have the contract sorted out. Thoughts on their moves? I mean, you already touched on the Alec Pierce thing a little bit, but
I like the Daniel Jones move.
do you think Daniel Jones is worth $50 million a year?
No. Not
Not based on what we saw for half a season before he popped his Achilles.
no.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
fair.
think so. I mean, maybe there's an argument to be made that the offense takes a major step back when he goes down, and so he was the driving force of that. But I am a believer in the argument that the offense was elite, and that allowed Daniel Jones to play really well. That run game was elite. I mean, I think the best. I mean, if a picture with 1,000 words, all I need to do to tell you about the Colts offense was show you the photo of the offensive line giving Jonathan Taylor a hole where Jonathan Taylor takes the handoff and he looks and he's got 8 yards wide and 15 yards deep of grass without a
Yeah.
defender who's not being blocked. And so I think that's the best way to describe the Colts offense last year is those kind of plays led to Daniel Jones being able to play. And Daniel Jones, Brock Purdy levels of, support, not supporting cast, but supporting game plan, I think is what I would say. And so I wouldn't give him $50 million a year off of that. Now, if he comes back, and here's the hard thing, because you transition him, tag him, you give him almost $40 million this year. If he comes back and has a really good season, it's going to be hard to be like, well, now we're willing to. He's going to be like, no, screw
Give me
y'all.
$60 million
yeah,
a year,
screw
actually.
y'all. My price went up because y'all didn't pay me.
Yeah.
So it's a dangerous game to play, but I think that
I think
long
it's the right
term,
deal to-
it's
The right game to play.
I
personally.
think that long term, maybe he has a good year and he walks, and then he goes somewhere else and he gets $55 million, $60 million a year. But I think long term they are handling this the right way. JP,
I mean, he's not worth $50 million a year. I thought he had his chance to earn it in that Chiefs game, and then in the second half, it was either 4 or 5 straight 3-and-outs.
Yeah.
That they had in the second half, where they had the lead for a majority of those two, and they had chances to extend their lead. That being said, they were kind of stuck with him because there aren't a lot of options out there. They don't have a first-round picks. You're not going to trust a second-round pick to start at quarterback. You're not going to start Anthony Richardson next year. And the team was 0-4 without Daniel Jones last year with Phillip Rivers and that whole experiment. Like the fact that they had to go to those lengths to bring back Phillip Rivers and have him start games was kind of a concern. So they were stuck. And I'm fully fine with what they decided to do, which was transition tag him and not do what the Giants did, which was give him the money up front before he's proven anything. I wouldn't give him the money
Sure.
at any point going forward. I'd hope to find a piece to play quarterback going forward, or I just would continue to tag Daniel Jones. They don't have their first round pick this year or next year, so they have to win with him. Another reason they were stuck with him, but I wouldn't sign him to the extension and then stick yourself with him. I like the Michael Pittman trade because it'll free up Alec Pearson. He gets to now be able to have the production that his contract will demand. They will need to address receiver at some point, but it's not a dire need. Like, I don't think it's as much of a need as it is for like the Atlanta Falcons, where you have the highly paid guy in Alec Pierce versus Drake London, who hasn't got the extension yet, I know, but
Yeah.
they have Josh Downs there, who had a comfortable season last year, over 600 receiving yards. They will need someone for as their third, but they don't have a huge glaring hole there at receiver. They had to bring back, I think, Alec Pierce, and I'm glad that they were able to get Pittman out so that they could make that happen, because I do think he was someone that they could prioritize. He signed the most expensive deal for a wide receiver in free agency history.
Oh, wow.
That was at least what I got from the Pat McAfee show earlier today, and that they love him there in Indianapolis, and he loves it there in Indianapolis. He came on the Pat McAfee show earlier today after he signed his contract. So I'm glad they were able to get that done, but they are going to have to hit on some of these later picks and find good value out of them, because they have a lot of holes. They don't have a first round pick, so I didn't end up doing my team needs
Sure.
for them yet, but I have finished those earlier today, and yeah, they've got some needs defensively and offensively on both sides of the ball. This defense wasn't necessarily that great last year, and then the offense relied too much on their key pieces like Jonathan Taylor and Daniel Jones. So they've got some holes. Now they're out of money. They put a bunch into Daniel Jones and Alec Pierce. They're gonna have to hit on the draft here in we're almost a month and a half at this point.
Yeah, I think it's very well said. I like how they've handled it so far. Obviously, there's a long way to go before they get to the finish line this offseason, but so far, so good. Now we can get to the Chiefs, and they made one of the most expected moves, I'd say, of free agency, and that's signing Kenneth Walker.
Yeah.
3-year, $45 million deal. He chose a very good time to have probably the best stretch of his career, both in terms of, right before hitting free agency, but also doing it in the playoffs, on a Super Bowl run, winning Super Bowl MVP, and doing it, when your backfield partner goes down. And all that snowballed and culminated into a $15 million per year deal. So shout out to him for that. The Chiefs address a much-needed issue. I'm not going to say I'm the biggest fan of Kenneth Walker, that I think he's a truly elite NFL running back. But what I will give him credit for, and, he has one of the best explosive run rates of any running back, and that's something the Chiefs have really lacked, is getting any sort of explosiveness out of their run game. They've kind of been Isaiah, Pacheco's going to go and run for 6 yards, and then, that's honestly a pretty good run from him. So bringing some explosiveness into that backfield, I think, is a very good move by the Chiefs. They released Juwan Taylor to save a lot in cap. It seems like they are bringing back Travis Kelce in the teens.
Yeah, he signed a $12 million deal earlier today.
12 million. I knew it was low teens, so he's coming back. But that's their offseason so far. Now we'll look to see how they maybe bring in some depth and fix up that offensive line maybe a little bit, and then we'll see what they do in the draft at 9. Kind of all eyes on that. But thoughts on their moves so far?
They got 2 first
Yeah, they
round
got
picks
9
too.
and 29
that's
now.
right. True.
So they
They
have,
traded Trent McDuffie.
and
Good call.
some people have even, I heard one person theorize that they'll use that to get a top 5 player. because I mean they've got a pick in the 29 to 30s every year, right? So now they have the rare occasion of having a pick 9 overall. They will probably never have the opportunity again to be able to move up into the top 5. Not never, but in this Mahomes era, I don't think they expect to be in the situation where they're top 10 and could move up. So maybe they want to go get a David Bailey or if they think Caleb Downs, and I just want to say this real quick because I think NFL teams have different expectations for where players will go, and they have more insider knowledge because they're inside the buildings. They have more resources available and better models for where they project players to go. And so if they think that Caleb Downs is a top 5 player and is going to go top 5, well, they have the ability to go and get that. That's a rare opportunity for them. It's a rare opportunity for any team to have 2 first-round picks and one of them be so high that you can use that to get even higher. So that might be something to keep your eye on if they want to go get a different player, an elite player, an Arvell Reese from Ohio State, if they think he's that valuable. That's something I'll be watching as well.
Sure. All right. Well, let's keep it
Oh,
rolling.
I would
You don't
like
like
to
that?
get some thoughts.
Okay, do it.
No, I was just I'm fine with actually the trading up, but Kenneth Walker I thought was a must signing.
Sure.
They were targeting a guy like him or Travis Etienne. Their running backs were 42nd and 46th in yards per attempt. Those being Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco. Their longest carry of the season was 35 yards. Jackie talked about the lack of explosiveness. That carry was by Xavier Worthy. Mahomes was their leading rusher 4 times this year. They had one game this year with a 100-yard rusher, and Mahomes scrambled second most behind Drake May with 52 scrambles, also the most Mahomes has ever done in his career. So the Kenneth Walker signing is massive, I think, for them. On top of them being able to trade Trent McDuffie to get another first-round pick, I think they'll just stay in both of those spots because if they liked Caleb Downs, I think he'll fall to him at 9. They could very well still, like Jeremiah Love, I will be more surprised if he gets past Tennessee or Washington at this point, but they could still pick him there and just have another elite weapon. Love has plenty of receiving upside, but I do think they'd probably go defense there. That late first-round pick allows them to maybe address offensive line as well.
Yeah.
For a team that was in a lot of cap hell, a lot of cap space they had to manage, for then they would clear the room to find a piece like Kenneth Walker, to clear the room and get a first-round pick by trading Trent McDuffie and not having to re-sign him. I think they've done a really good job so far in this offseason, and they're really now it's all a question of where do they go with those 2 first-round picks and what is the health of Patrick Mahomes to start next season, because the sky could be the limit for this team with how they're built right now. They got to, if there's any glaring hole, they got a glaring hole at receiver, and I do think they need a little bit of help on the offensive line, but they got the weapons to do that potentially in the draft.
Yeah, good point. It could end up being a very quick retooling for the Chiefs, which I think we all knew was going to at least be there. They were going to attempt to do so. They weren't going to waste a couple years of Mahomes and do kind of a legit soft rebuild. But they're off to a good start in that regard. We can move on to Sanders' team now.
Real quick, I just want to say, Tucker, I actually just put it on I literally turned it on, set it down, and Aaron Judge hit the 2-run home run, and then we just saw the 3-run home run. So we have basketball on Jack's laptop on and off as he uses it, for podcasting and also for watching basketball. And then I've been using my iPad for notes, but now it's like, well, I feel like we should watch part of the Represent America, watch the World Baseball Classic.
It was a nuke.
It was an absolute shot. But, yes.
We can talk about If Man's team now.
Oh, boy.
And Sanders' team. The Chargers have made multiple moves. The Commanders released Tyler Biadasz. I still don't know how you pronounce his last name. I'm not.
That's really tough. I was hoping you could inform me.
Because it has befuddled me for a while now. To a 3-year, $30 million deal. They signed Cole Strange to a multi-year deal, and then they brought back Khalil Mack before, and then they also, they released Mekhi Becton. So a semi-active day from them. They look to address the interior of the offensive line, bringing in Tyler. Not going to say his last name again. I personally like them bringing back Khalil Mack.
Do we think there's a chance he's from Nashville, Tennessee?
Probably not.
Dang, I wish he, because then we could just call him Tyler B from Nashville, Tennessee.
Yeah.
That'd be incredible, but I doubt that.
I like bringing back Khalil Mack. I feel like he still has something to offer. He's some stuff left in the
For sure.
tank. And it's not a long contract, so hey, if it doesn't work out this next year, oh well.
Yeah.
But I'll kick it to you first, Sanders, because this is your team. Thoughts so far? What are you still looking to see?
I mean, this has given me. I mean, I'm excited. I like the bringing in Tyler from Washington, and from what you and from what Andrew were saying when we were talking about it in yapping, he's an average center, which is a huge upgrade over what we had, especially
Yes.
on that interior offensive line last season. And offensive line is one of those things where good players, if you put 5 good players on an offensive line, you could have a great offensive line. And so we have 2, or I expect us to have 2 elite offensive tackles. I am very okay with 3 average interior offensive linemen because I expect 3 average offensive linemen and 2 tackles to be a very good offensive line. Fringe elite, in my opinion. So it doesn't take elite players to make a really good offensive line. I think it's good money. I like that we got it done early. I do think that there were some fans today who were like, well, why aren't we doing anything? Why aren't we doing anything? We just made, I believe, our second signing of the day like an hour ago, unless I missed one. So we have not been super active all day long. We did, which maybe we were able to sign him because y'all cut him. That's why we had early access to him.
Correct.
But like that's why he could sign sooner. And then I know we made a couple cuts. We cut Mekhi Becton, and I thought we cut somebody else, but the Becton cut was huge, cleared up nearly $10 million in cap space, and then re-signed a couple guys who were already on the roster. So I've been super happy already, and we haven't even got to the draft. I still feel like guard makes a lot of sense, but if we make another guard move, I feel like we could go anywhere with our first-round pick. If we bring in another, like I said, average guard, which there aren't a lot of them left. As I said earlier, offensive line is one of the worst positions to need something because they are in such high demand.
Yeah, who doesn't need an
Right.
offensive line rolling into free agency?
Right. So if we were able to do that, which we had a lot of cap space coming into the free agency. The Becton cut gives us 10 more.
Y'all still got some left.
Yeah, if there's another move out there and we go get a guard, I love that personally because that really gives us so much maneuverability when it comes
Sure.
to the draft. Even as far you could trade back and try and get another pick. I don't think that's necessarily the move. We could trade up and say, well, we're ready to invest in this year. This is the year we want to win. We're not trying to draft second and third round guys, or we don't need our 2027 first rounder because we're trying to win in 2026. I don't know. I've been happy with it. I'll stop rambling because that's what I'm doing at this point. But I've been very pleased with the free agency through the first 8 hours.
Cool. Anything to add there, JP?
Sanders said if 11 times during that monologue.
That's great work from you. Now
The
let's
jokes write themselves.
let's kind of move on to the more famous and popular team that occupies SoFi Stadium, and that's the Los Angeles Rams, who have been one of the biggest movers and biggest players so far this offseason. They made the big splash move. They traded for Trent McDuffie, giving up their first this year, a 5th, a 6th, and then the 3rd rounder next year. So a haul for Trent McDuffie, who I believe, y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, but they have since extended him. They gave him his money.
Yes.
And then they also signed McDuffie's teammate
Mhm.
from Kansas City, Jalen Watson, to a 3-year, $51 million deal. They re-signed Cameron Curl, Commanders legend, to a 3-year, $36 million deal, as well as re-signing Tyler Higbee. But so far, all their focus has been on what the weakness of last year's team was, and that's the secondary. And I feel like they've done a fantastic job addressing it, not going to lie.
Yeah.
And that's with the 13th overall pick still in hand for them to do what they want. I feel like they're sitting in a fantastic spot here, trying to maximize probably this last year of Matt Stafford. Any disagreements? Anything to add?
None whatsoever. There's no. So JP just made fun of me for saying if 11 times while talking about the Chargers. There are no ifs to say about the Rams. They have no holes. There is no if they sign this guy, if this guy develops. There are no holes in that roster right now. And so they truly, with that 15th overall pick, it is 15th. You said 15th, so I'm gonna trust you there.
It's 13th.
Oh,
No, it's 13.
13th. Did you? Okay.
I thought I said 13th. If I said 15th, I apologize.
No, we're good. 13th. With that first round pick, they can do whatever they want and go anywhere they want. And that's awesome for them. It's going to be really fascinating to see how they handle that. But there's so much freedom. It almost feels, I'm going to compare this to the Cowboys when they drafted CeeDee Lamb. At the time, they already had Amari Cooper, who Amari Cooper was fantastic in his first 2 years, I believe, in Dallas before they drafted CeeDee Lamb. But they drafted CeeDee Lamb because they had a great offensive line, and they had DeMarcus Lawrence on the defensive line at the time. And in the second, I can't remember, I feel like they had a very good roster at the time. And because of that, CeeDee Lamb falls to them in the late teens, and they're able to draft him even though they didn't really need wide receiver. I think they had Gallup as well at the time, Michael Gallup and Mari Cooper, who at the time it was
Michael Gallup.
yeah,
Man.
a great wide receiver duo. But they draft CeeDee Lamb, and it turns out to be, a fantastic draft pick. And here we are, several years later, and CeeDee Lamb is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. This is the kind of opportunity the Rams have, where when it gets to them, unless they disagree and they think they have a roster hole that needs to be filled, they can truly just take best player available, most impactful player available, and then see where that goes. So It's a great situation for them. And I said on our last show that there are some maybe concerns about taking Chiefs secondary guys because they've had several who have left that system and then not looked as good. Specifically, L'Jarius Sneed, who looked great with the Chiefs and has not looked good at all by the Titans, and is expected to be released by the Titans. At least some expect him to be released. So, But I love it. I think it's great moves. They re-sign Cameron Curl. I think it's been awesome. It's been great stuff by them, roster management wise. So, what are your thoughts, JP?
What better way to address a win now team than to, instead of take flyers on first round cornerbacks, you go and get known commodity cornerbacks for the same value.
Yeah.
I thought now seeing them do those things, it just makes so much sense. To have not only are they guys that are known commodities, but these are Trent McDuffie and Jalen Watson are Super Bowl champions. Like, they're going to bring that kind of culture to the locker room as well, which is a team that is not fully comprised of that first Rams Super Bowl team at this point. So
Sure.
I think both of those two moves are really, really good. And it was a huge need. Corner was a huge, huge need. It's why I had them drafting 2 defensive backs in the mock draft last Monday. Dylan Thieneman as a safety, and then Colton Hood with the 29th pick. They allowed the most yards through the air last year, 2,733. And in the biggest game of the year, JSN had 10 catches, 153 yards, and a touchdown in the NFC Championship. They could not stop him. Sure. They've addressed that now in the offseason. And, now that 13th pick is really a fun story of they could really go anywhere. They could also, they could just trade it again.
True.
They hate first-round picks. They've only spent one since they drafted Jared Goff, drafting Jared Verse out of Florida State. So who knows? They could very well just trade it. That would surprise me just because whoever you're trading for is expensive, but you never know with Los Angeles. So
Yeah, it's also a little different trading like a 25th overall pick than like trading the 13th. You could get a much better player theoretically at 13. No, I think it's fantastic. You just got to come in the Rams for doing nothing halfway. It's like, we have this need.
Yeah.
We're going to make sure without, I as a GM am not going to go to sleep in 5 months going, oh, man, maybe we should have done more to address this. Because maybe even if it doesn't work out, you at least are going, we put everything we had into improving that and giving it our best shot. And that's what they've done. Because, even after the Trent McDuffie move, in the mock I was making this morning, I had them taking another corner at 13. And it was like, they'll probably just double down because, why not? And then, they go and they do double down. They just double down in free agency. They didn't even wait to the draft to do so. So shout out to them for that. But yeah, just so far a great offseason for them.
You know who it's really good for? Emmanuel Forbes. Because now he gets to sit and develop behind 2 really good cornerbacks. And then next year,
He does not need to sit and develop. He needs to get on some steroid, creatine, workout, bodybuilding plan to bulk up a little bit, be
Yeah.
in the weight room.
Yeah.
The Raiders. We'll move on to the Raiders
Let's
now.
do that.
Who I don't actually have the numbers in front of me, but I feel like they've signed the most people today out of anybody. I feel like every time I'm looking, they're signing yet another piece. They're putting all
I
that.
got the numbers.
they're up there.
You want to give us the numbers then real quick, JP?
Yeah, Tyler Lindenbaum, 3 years, 81 million. Quay Walker, 3 years, 40 million. Nakobe Dean, 3 years, 36 million. Jalen Naylor, 3 years, 35 million. Kwity Paye, 3 years, 48 million. Eric Stokes, 3 years, 30 million. Malcolm Kuntz, 1 year, 11 million. They traded for Teron Johnson, who they then signed to an extension as well. They were active today. They had some of the most cap space out of any team in the National Football League coming into this offseason. They had 87 million, and then they made a few moves like the Max Crosby trade, which freed up even more money, and they spent all of it today. Like they're looking to be the Patriots of last year, spending a ton of money on a ton of guys, and I guess that means we should have the same conversation of, did they make splash moves or just good starting piece moves with all the moves that they made today?
I think they made one splash move. I think Linderbaum is a splash move, and I think the others are all good to really good. Not all. I think Linderbaum is a splash, and then they've got a couple who are good to really good, and then everyone else is just like starters.
Yeah, they wasted no time spending their cap space. They personally are me. They're looking at me. They got that 7th seed twinkle on them right now of just like, oh man. And then to go with the multiple first round picks they have, like, hey, maybe Mendoza rookie year leads them to the playoffs.
Multiple first
because
they traded Max Crosby. Yep.
So they have. They have the first and they have the 14th. So they have two top half first round picks. I like how they're sitting. I do agree there maybe is something to like. You just signed a lot of quality players, so maybe like down the line, it's like, okay, like none of these guys are like really elite, and maybe we could have gone bargain some and then made a couple other bigger splash moves besides just paying Linderbaum a ton of money, who deserves it. He was very, very coveted as the top center in free agency. But I'm excited to see how this goes. It's at the very least, it's just a complete switch up, and it's going to just be interesting to see how this team comes together. I do wonder if Geno Smith is sitting out there like, oh, now you do it. No, I'm Josh, and I'm excited. I'm excited to watch Las Vegas Raiders football. At least at the start of next season.
Yeah. On my Raiders TikTok, where I picked them to go 2-15, and got a lot
they
of
did not go 2-15, by the way.
Correct.
Horrible take, Sanders.
Yeah, they go 3-14, which I was off by 50%, which is probably as far as percentages go, that's one of the worst takes any of us had, is off by 50%. But that video got more comments than it did likes, a lot of hate, a lot of this guy doesn't know ball. 2 weeks ago, I spent 2 hours going back and responding to every single one of them. I did about 3 that were just copy and paste messages, and then I was like, you know what, this deserves more personality, and so I responded individually to each one with a unique message. I only had 5 responses to my responses. Some were like, "You're right," I did not see this coming. I was very respectful. I was like, you know what, have a great 2026 season. And that's just to say that so far they're having a great 2026 season. So I continue to wish the Las Vegas Raiders well in this 2020. I'm excited to see what happens. I liked Ashton Jeanty in college. He was a lot of fun to watch. I predicted that when he went to the Raiders, he would not be good because the offensive line was bad. And I hope that they continue to get other pieces outside of Tyler Linderbaum to boost that offensive line. Because I think that could be really fun. Fernando Mendoza in that backfield with Jeanty could be a really fun offense to watch if they can get the other pieces, the other 6 pieces they still need.
Yeah, also I will say their GM seems to love a 3-year deal.
Yeah.
In the 30s to 40s. Like he just was handing them out like candy.
Yeah.
You want a 3-year deal for 30-something million? I got you. You've come to the right place.
That's funny.
I mean, it kind of makes a little sense because that'll be getting towards the end of much of these guys' primes. You would
Yes.
assume if they're all like 26 to 27. It's also would then be the last year of Fernando Mendoza's rookie contract. I think even with all the signings and the Linderbaum signing is a splash move. I agree. It's a huge move for them. It essentially becomes trading Max Crosby for 2 first-round picks and Tyler Linderbaum, and I think they won that trade at this point. It fascinates me, though, with that trade, the 14th overall pick, where they go, because they could go anywhere, and they need really anywhere still,
Yep.
even with the signings that they had. Maybe a little less at linebacker. When you sign a guy like Nakobe Dean and Quay Walker, I think you're good there. That was kind of a need at one point. Wide receiver can be a really interesting
That's exactly what I was going to say.
That's what I was looking at in the mock this morning.
at the same time, like offensive line is still a need, and they could find an offensive lineman who can play right tackle, opposite side of Colton Miller, who's going to be their left tackle next year. But I'm really excited to see where they go with that 14th pick.
Sure.
That is, I think, the largest story for me, because they could go really anywhere. They could go for a high value defensive player, add among these defensive signings they had today, or they could go after a true one receiver to pair with Fernando. I think it's fascinating was the word I use in the Ravens with Max Crosby. It's this other half of it is fascinating to me as well. I'm really excited to see where we mock that 14th pick and where that 14th pick eventually goes.
I wonder,
I think I had Spencer Fano at 14 this morning.
are they the team that takes either Omar Cooper Jr. or Elijah Surratt with the first pick in the second round, and
Maybe.
they go Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase mode?
Maybe. I bet Mendoza would like that.
I mean, think about the last time the Raiders paired a college quarterback with his wide receiver teammate.
I'm not tracking.
Derek Carr and Devontae Adams. It did not go well.
Yeah. I
Um,
forgot that, yeah.
Yeah, Fresno State pair. But it's going to be super fun to see how they continue to use all the resources they have available this offseason in the draft and the rest of free agency. This is still day one, so we have a lot left in front of us.
Yeah. Well, let's rattle through some of these next teams that didn't do a ton, starting with the Miami Dolphins, who did sign the best quarterback available. They got Malik Willis. They won the Malik Willis sweepstakes. 3 years, $67 million. People honestly thought he maybe would get more than that. Regardless, like I said, they win the sweepstakes. They get the best quarterback available. It's a position of need. They were not looking forward to potentially rolling into next season with Quinn Ewers as the starter, and that will no longer be the case. Thoughts on Malik Willis's fit in Miami? Do y'all like the move for Miami? Do you like it for Malik Willis?
You kick it
Well,
off,
they're kind
JP.
of becoming the Green Bay Dolphins or the Miami Packers
Yeah.
with the moves that they've been making. I think Malik is a great fit because this is a guy who hasn't got a chance to really start and have a long-term, ride as a starting quarterback, and he's going to get to do that with like no pressure on him.
Yeah.
No pressure to win, no pressure to be successful. Now his contract, like, it's 3 years. You said 6-7 million.
Yes, I did.
Okay, 6-7 million. But that's like what the Justin Fields got last year. He got 2 years, 44 million, or his 2 years, 40 million. So it's in the similar ballpark, 22 million a year.
Yeah.
It's manageable, and they're already going to pay 54 million in dead cap to Tua anyway, among other pieces as well. So I think it's a great fit because he doesn't have to be. I really like it because he doesn't have to be like a win now guy.
Sure.
Like if he had went somewhere else, he would have 100% been under the pressure of we need you to be successful and competitive. And he's going with people who believe in him as well. The GM who joins the Dolphins coming from the Packers, John Eric Sullivan, and then Jeff Hafley as well. They believe in Malik Willis and what he can do. And I really love the fit because of that.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I'm fine with it. I think it's kind of where I wanted him to go, honestly.
Really?
Yeah. I'm excited to watch him and Achane and Jalen Waddle. Like, just go have fun almost for a year. Kind of like JP just said, no win now pressure.
Yeah,
I mean, I didn't want him to go to the Cardinals.
I would have liked him at the Vikings.
Yeah, I just don't feel like the Vikings was ever really. I didn't really hear that rumored.
Right.
So
I'm
like,
just saying, if I had my pick, I would have rather he ended up on a team that I feel like has a little bit better infrastructure and gives him a better chance of success. Because I liked him. I liked him coming out of Liberty. I think he's been a really cool story, and I've enjoyed every chance he gets to play and plays well. And so I'm nervous that he's going to go to Miami and he's going to be bad for a year, and it's immediately going to be like, well, we're going to bring in a competitor next year, and it's either going to be a first round. Like his chance is going to get wasted, his opportunity, because the Dolphins, I just don't know if they're going to be good.
Yeah, I mean, he will have to, obviously, I mean, it's the NFL. You have to show something or teams will move on quick. But I don't think he has to show something in terms of, like, winning a bunch of games.
Yeah, it's also just different when you aren't a first-round pick.
Sure.
That's just kind of always been the reality of being, especially quarterback, is first-round picks get so much of a leash. I mean, think about Anthony Richardson. If Anthony Richardson was not taken in the first round, he probably wouldn't be in the NFL right now. It's kind of the reality that guys who are taken in the first round get, and understandably so, because that's, teams invest resources in you, and so they want to take every opportunity and give you an opportunity to succeed. But if you're not that first-round pick, like Malik Willis wasn't, I'm just worried that he's going to have a very short leash now that he's a full-time starter, and people are going to see him potentially. If he fails at this opportunity, it's just going to be that's a wrap on his career.
Well, I mean, at some point also, you really only do kind of typically get like not very many people get a third chance.
Right.
Like this is his second chance. So
is it? He hasn't even had this is his first chance.
I guess it's his first real chance, but like the
really
team
kinda
that
is his
drafts you,
first.
I feel like is kind of, or you want to say Green Bay was his, but like, I mean, what, he got drafted by the Titans
Yeah.
and hung around, and I feel like that was, I mean, even though he never really got a start, but like, that was his chance to like earn a role, and he didn't really earn a role, and they moved on.
But like, so he had the chance to earn the role, or he had a chance?
That was his first opportunity. I mean, that was his first opportunity in the league, and he didn't do anything with it. He didn't do enough to earn the starting spot.
Yeah. I think I would disagree on what I mean when I say a player has a chance. I don't think, I mean, yes, being on roster is a chance, but like this, yeah. I'm going to say chance a lot in the next, like if I try talking, so I just don't want to say chance a lot.
I'm most happy for the Miami Dolphins elementary school teacher who doesn't have to have her students calculate Tua Tagovailoa passing yards and instead get to calculate Malik Willis passing yards next season.
It's a breath of fresh air. That's for sure.
It's a lot easier.
Cool. Next team. Minnesota Vikings haven't really done anything yet of note. If anyone wants to disagree with me on that, I feel like a lot of us are waiting to see what they do at QB. If it is going to be Kyler Murray when he's officially released, if they're going to do anything to potentially address some weaknesses in the defensive backfield. What's going on there? I mean, they did let Jalen Naylor walk. He went to the Raiders. But anything on them? If not, I'm going to keep it rolling.
I got nothing. Keep it rolling.
New England Patriots, kind of same thing. Haven't really done much yet. We're all waiting to see how they address wide receiver, whether it's in free agency or it's in draft. They were kind of all in on Alec Pierce, or at least their fans were all in on them being all in on Alec Pierce. They did not get him, so what's the pivot? Is it Romeo Doubs? Does he go there? Do you end up trading for A.J. Brown? Do you address it in the draft? How do you handle that? If you want to give thoughts on that, you can. If not, we can get on to JP's team. Or if I missed a signing by them.
No,
feel
they
free to
have
toss it
signed
in.
Reggie Gilliam, a fullback, and then Draymond Jones. So not any major signings for a team that was in the Super Bowl. And so maybe you feel confident about, well, if all of our pieces are returning, which I do believe they returned a lot from that Super Bowl roster. So no improvements yet have been made to that roster.
Cool.
You ready to talk Saints, JP?
Yeah, let's do it.
I'll kick it off real quick, and it's their big move of the day. They signed Travis Etienne to a 4-year, $52 million deal, seemingly signaling the end of the Alvin Kamara tenure in New Orleans. And I'll let you speak more on that, JP, as well as speak more on maybe other moves they made that I don't have down. Your thoughts on the Saints' first day of free agency?
Yeah, the ETN move was, I think, a little bit of and not surprise is not a word for it, but a pleasant surprise, I think,
Sure.
is more so a way to term it for us Saints fans. I didn't really kind of expect us to be a team that was going to spend really any money anywhere. And instead, Mickey Loomis and Kellen Moore, and it seems like Tyler Shuck, because he retweeted every single one of our signings today saying, let's go, and like hyping up these players as well, that they were all in on building a team to win now and win this division next year, because it feels like it's up for the taking with what other teams are looking like and the moves that they're making. ETN is going to be explosive. It is a huge, huge need filled for the New Orleans Saints. I've been wanting us to draft Jeremiah Love. I still wouldn't even hate us drafting Jeremiah Love if he's there. But we needed running back. 5th least rushing yards last year, 2nd worst rushing yards per attempt at 3.7, the 2nd least rushing touchdowns with 9. Shout out 9. The longest rush of the season was 34 yards by Tyler Shuck. That was his long run against Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the rain, which ended up being a touchdown. And we were the only team in the NFL with no game with a 100-yard rusher. So Travis Etienne immediately fills that. He also is a great fit as well with his ability to catch the pass out of the backfield. Everyone's first reaction is, okay, what does that do with Alvin Kamara? Well, Alvin Kamara hasn't been necessarily productive for better part of 2 years. Last year for sure. The year prior, you could make some kind of argument for him. But he's going to be 31 anyway. He has a high cap number, so it's hard to people are going to make the argument like trade him, release him. The only thing we can do is trade him in the preseason and save like $4 million on his $18 million cap hit. The only thing he can do to help us is retire, which would be the 2nd straight year where we have a guy retire, and it help us massively in terms of cap space. Last year being Derek Carr, and if Kamara does the same this year, my goodness, I would pay my respects very much to him, because it would free up cap space for this year and keep us out of more dead money.
Yeah.
I love the ETN signing. And then on top of that, we signed David Edwards, who was the starting left guard for the Buffalo Bills, the best rushing team in the National Football League last year. Left guard was a kind of a huge need. 4 out of our 5 starters were set, and left guard was the one that wasn't. Last year, we allowed 49 sacks. I already read the rushing numbers, and those apply to offensive line just as much. Sanders would argue even more. David Edwards immediately can fill that. He is a great interior piece when we already have our tackle set with Fuaga and Kelvin Banks, the first-round pick last year. So I love both those moves. Those 2 moves, along with the Noah Fant signing, which is a signing that I think surprised me a little bit, but it makes sense because it's going to allow us to be able to go to more 12, 13 personnel, which is becoming really popular now in the NFL. Teams like the Rams and the Seahawks are doing it a ton. The Patriots did it a ton last year. And so Noah Fant can immediately become a pass-catching threat and be a part of our 12 personnel. But I really like what it does for the draft is it really shores up that first overall pick, the 8th overall pick, that first rounder. We can go after a weapon at receiver in Carnell Tate, or if we, for some reason, like Mekhi Lemon or Jordan Tyson. I hope we don't do that with the 8th overall pick. Or we can go with a huge defensive piece that falls to us. Caleb Downs would be awesome. Alontae Taylor walked this today. He went to the Tennessee Titans. Brandon Staley has a role in his defense called the star position, and that star position plays a ton of different roles. Alontae Taylor was that last year. Hello, Caleb Downs. He could fill that immediately for us, and I would love a guy like him to join this defense the defense had a really good run to end the year. So I love what it does for our 8th overall pick. And then as well, our 2nd round pick is we could spend that on whatever we didn't spend it on in the 1st round. If we go defensive player, we can go receiver in the 2nd round. And it brings a lot of hope towards next season. And it's also a clear statement of we're fully committed to Tyler Shuck.
Yeah, cool. I think you said it well. I don't have anything to add. I'm happy that you're happy.
I will.
Yeah.
I do have a couple things, especially just on Etienne. I really wonder. I don't want to read into it too much, and maybe y'all can tell me if I am, but it feels like the fact that the Chiefs and the Saints, who pick 8 and 9, and both have been tied to Jeremiah Love, both sign the elite running backs in this free agency class. It makes me feel like Love isn't going to fall that far, or they don't expect him to.
It's a thought, yeah.
Because, well, I disagree with JP about he'd be okay. I don't know how you spend $52 million on a running back and then draft one with your first round pick. I would think if I were a fan, I'd be a little upset about that. But do y'all think that's reading into it too much, or does that feel realistic?
I think it's a reasonable conclusion to come to.
Yeah.
I think it's the read personally.
Yeah.
That they are hearing from what they heard at the combine that it just doesn't look like he's getting out of the side of the top 7. And so why risk it when their running back is really one of the more talented markets there were in free agency this year, when you have the Super Bowl MVP and then a couple of 1,000-yard rushers who have had 1,000-yard seasons, not just necessarily this year, but in prior seasons as well. So I think it's a clear sign that they don't think Jeremiah Love is going to be there at 8 or 9.
Shout out 9.
Shout out 9. I think it's a great point. Like JP said. On to the Jets, who...
the Giants.
Yes, the Giants. I apologize. The Giants signed Isaiah Likely. Harbaugh kind of brings one of his guys over from Baltimore. He gets a 3-year, $40 million deal. And I saw the conspiracy theory that was like Harbaugh knew he was getting fired and convinced the Ravens to give Mark Andrews an extension so he could sign Isaiah Likely wherever he went next. And then they signed Tremaine Edmonds to a 3-year, $36 million deal. And that's their tackle, right?
Tremaine Edmonds is a Illuminor.
Linebacker.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, so
Tremaine Edmonds
that's
is a
something.
linebacker.
And they-
Illuminor is the tackle.
And they also re-signed Illuminor. They brought
Yes.
him back. That's what I was thinking of. So those are kind of their moves so far. Quality additions. I think bringing Illuminor back is a big piece. All the Giants fans on X seemed very happy about it. Tremaine Edmonds was maybe a little surprising. I'd seen a lot of steam in the mock draft world about Sonny Styles at 5, and that maybe puts, and not fully put out that fire, but it puts a big damper on it. But y'all's thoughts on the Giants' move so far?
Well, I don't hate the Tremaine Edmonds thing at all, and I think that kind of opens the door. They did not re-sign Wan'Dale Robinson like I kind of hoped that they would.
Yeah.
And so now at 5, it feels like wide receivers the likely scenario. It's either that or is it offensive line? Is that their other kind of big?
They could use some offensive line help.
But I feel like
Offensive line and corner.
yeah. So I don't hate Tremaine Edmonds at all. He's a good starting linebacker who's put together a couple really good seasons. So I don't hate that at all. And then I don't hate the Isaiah Likely option either, to get Jackson Dart a weapon who has made some highlight plays. Right? It's weird to think about players that feel like they're good because you've seen them a lot. Same thing about DeMar Hamlin, whose name is very famous. Isaiah Likely is very famous because he was a part of that catch where his toe was out of bounds. They lose to the Chiefs, and so it's weird how social media.
It's also a part of that catch that he had, but then was knocked out of his hands. The loss on the Steelers game.
Yes, and so it's just weird to think about how social media can shape your perception of players.
Don't throw Isaiah Likely the ball in clutch, high pressure situations.
That I guess that could be your takeaway.
Good thing the Giants will not be in very many of those this season.
Or maybe
as they probably will
Harbaugh
not be very good.
Harbaugh knew, and so he told him to drop him,
Oh,
so that
maybe.
he knew
Maybe.
2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Trying to drag down the value.
Yep, drag down the value of Isaiah Likely. Told him to drop the catches. So yeah, I like both these moves by the Giants. I think that they were always going to be more of a draft team, get younger guys because they're a young team. So I'm not surprised to not see any huge moves in free agency yet.
Anything there, JP?
No.
Cool.
I do not.
Now on to the Jets, who started their offseason by tagging Breece Hall, and I'm sure Breece Hall was very sad about that happening to him. Then they signed Joseph Asai, and then they traded for Devondre Sweat from the Titans. And they gave up Jermaine Johnson the second in that. Signed Demario Davis to a multi-year deal. And they also today traded for Minka Fitzpatrick from the Dolphins.
Yeah.
So the Dolphins gave up yet another defensive back from a non-existent defensive back room. They had a lot of money to spend, and they're spending it. But it also that's kind of how it feels a little bit to me. Is just like they're, trying to make moves more around the margins. There's no reason for them to make any crazy splash moves because the roster just simply isn't good enough. So they're kind of biding time.
Yeah.
But any thoughts on their moves so far?
Well,
Anyone that sticks out to you or anything like that?
two of the guys, I think it's funny you say they didn't have any splash moves. 5 years ago, they would have been splash moves. Minka Fitzpatrick and Demario Davis. Now both those guys are just going to come in and start, and you hope that they're, not weaknesses or openings in your roster. But, yeah, I think that it's – I'm trying to remember if there was a team that did this and not did this specific. There was a team that brought in a lot of, average guys. I believe it was the Raiders. I think 2 years ago in free agency, or maybe last year, they signed a bunch of guys to 1 year deals, because maybe this was 2 years ago. They knew they weren't going to be good. They signed a bunch of guys to 1 year deals, and then save that cap money. And now they're in this situation this season where they have $100 million, and they're going to have another $100 million next year with Geno Smith's contract ending. I kind of feel like that's a similar situation the Jets are in. Signing David Onyemata to a 1 year contract, Kingsley Enagbare, that's my guess, 1 year deal. Brees Hall is now on a 1 year deal with that franchise tag. It just feels like a lot of Band-Aid guys, and maybe that's so they can figure out quarterback next offseason. I'm not really sure what the goal is. I'm not sure what the goal of the Jets organization is. I'm not sure where they're headed. Because
I saw these moves as trying to shore up a defense that was the second worst in the NFL last year.
Yeah,
and that's definitely a good place to
29
start.
points per game.
Minka Fitzpatrick probably can catch a interception next season. So
add veteran pieces. They gave up scores on 49% of their opponent's drives. They had 0 takeaways of any kind from a linebacker. Demario Davis can surely help with that. And like Jack said, 0 interceptions, first time in NFL history. Minka Fitzpatrick can help with that. I think they're adding veteran pieces in Minka, Demario Davis, and Osai to try and just get the biggest ones. Demario and Minka are leadership to that defense and that part of the locker room, because they severely lacked that last year. And when you trade away what was kind of your leadership in Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner mid-season, it's just not going to improve. So I think these two moves replace that for them. Does that mean they're going to be any good? No. But it's going to help, I think, maybe them going forward, establishing a culture that Aaron Glenn desperately needs to do.
Yeah, I think you framed it really well, and it's a thing, too, of, they got to shore up the defense, because realistically, if the defense is that bad again, everyone loses their job. And you don't even get a chance to try and rebuild this thing. So, well said. Let's go and move on, though, to the Eagles, who I don't really believe has made tons of signings, but they
extended Jordan Davis.
They've extended Jordan Davis. There's rumors they're going to trade Jalen Carter. Jalen Phillips is out the door, as well as Reed Blankenship is out the door.
Nakobe Dean is gone.
Nakobe Dean's out the door. So it's kind of become the classic Eagle things over the past couple years of the defense is so good, we just simply can't keep everyone, and they have to kind of decide who to keep and who to extend, like Jordan Davis, and who they're going to let walk. So time will tell if they push the right buttons there. But yeah, anything on the Eagles either, y'all?
Nope.
Cool.
No.
On to the Steelers, who had a semi-notable day. They traded for Michael Pittman, semi-surprisingly. Didn't really have to give up much to do so, and then they immediately extended him afterwards. We'll get to that in just a minute. What y'all's thoughts on that? And they also signed Jamel Dean to a 3-year, $36 million deal, and then they re-signed Asante Samuel Jr. to a cheap little $4 million contract. I feel like the Michael Pittman thing is kind of the big thing here of okay, it's been known they need wide receiver help for a while now, and this is, I guess, their way of addressing it. Do we like the way they went about addressing it? Do we think this is appropriate measures to kind of help fill in behind DK Metcalf?
Yeah, I don't hate the move at all. once again, it'll be like a hindsight thing. How does Pittman and Metcalf, how do they play together? Who is their quarterback going to be? Right now, it's people think it could be
I think the kind of thought is probably just Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers comes back. I mean, I don't hate getting another weapon that isn't a tight end. That's always nice to have actual wide receivers to throw to. And then I love the Jamel Dean signing personally. I'm excited to see him in that secondary. So, yeah, I like the moves they made so far, and I think the thing I'll be waiting for is confirmation on whether or not Aaron Rodgers does come back, and then if he doesn't, which direction do they go?
Sure.
I'll go ahead and confirm now he's coming back.
Oh, boy.
And that's why I do like the Michael Pittman trade for them, because now they don't necessarily have to spend that first round pick on a receiver. They can spend that somewhere else, and because Aaron doesn't like young receivers at all. He's been notoriously really awful with young receivers throughout his career. Outside of when he was young and he kind of had no choice and didn't have a say in the organization yet. So Michael Pittman, older receiver, established receiver, also a Southern Cal guy, like Aaron Rodgers, USC. Aaron Rodgers went to Cal, of course. So I do think that helps them. Steelers had just 47% of their receiving come from receivers last year, which was a league low. They also needed receivers. DK Metcalf, Roman Wilson, and Ben Skoranek were the only receivers on their roster before today. And now you add Michael Pittman Jr. To that group. I also love the Jamal Dean signing as well. They needed a corner to pair with Jody Porter Jr. They gave up the 4th most passing yards per game and the 4th most yards through the air. They also had the 3rd most tackles. The 3rd most missed tackles last year, 126. So this is a team that needs help defensively. They had a bad defensive year, I'd argue, last year. And they get Michael Pittman in just a cheap deal of just pick swaps, and then they get to sign him. A nice little trade and sign, which is what they do in the NFL as opposed to sign and trade in the NBA. So I like the moves that they've made so far today. I'm curious to see what Rico Dowdle's number is going to be. But I like that signing as well, because they just didn't run the ball as well as they should have last year. Probably because you had 2 guys in Jaylen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell who are both receiving threats.
Yep.
And they didn't get what they wanted out of Caleb Johnson, the rookie. So Rico Dowdle can immediately kind of be a first and second down back for them, which I really like.
Did you say they signed Rico Dowdle?
They did.
Yeah.
When did that happen?
I haven't seen. I don't remember who tweeted about it, but it happened.
He signed it a couple
today.
hours ago.
Okay.
It was a later move. It was not one of the first things.
Yeah.
And yeah,
we don't know how much it is yet. So that I think that's the question I'm waiting to be answered on, whether I like that move or not.
Sure.
If they got him, because he very well could have gotten not a Kenneth Walker deal, but even a Travis Etienne kind of deal with what he had in those 3 to 4 weeks in a row he had in Carolina. He showed a lot of promise, much different to what he had shown in Dallas. So, and then also they re-signed Sayamalo, who Sanders really wanted them to re-sign when he did the Steelers off-season primer, and they brought him back, and that was the only hole they had offensive line, really. So it was a good day, I felt like, for the Steelers. I know they're still waiting answers on Aaron Rodgers, but I do think the fact that he even did the interview with Pat McAfee, I think showed that
a good sign.
He's coming back, and he's going to play quarterback for the Steelers next year.
Yeah, I disagree, and I love what you said. Exactly how I feel about it. It's like trading for Michael Pittman lets you go defense in the first round and add some youth to a defense that's just kind of generally getting older and regressing because of getting older. So now you don't kind of have that debate of, oh, we have 2 big needs to address in the first round, and we only have 1 pick, so we have to choose. I feel like that kind of takes care of that decision for you. Moving on, though, we get to the.
Before we move on, real quick, did you see the Bobby Witt play?
It's a great play.
For the 3 viewers we currently have in the live chat, if you're not a baseball fan, go and look up the Bobby Witt play that just happened. That is crazy. I mean, it happened 30, 45 minutes ago, but that is ridiculous. Who is next up? Seattle Seahawks.
Who
Huge move by the Seattle Seahawks. I don't know. Did I make a graphic out of this one? I don't think I
We're going
did.
to find out. A lot of the Seahawks day has been losing defensive pieces.
I did not.
And then obviously also Kenneth Walker from their Super Bowl team. And then bringing back someone that I feel like was rumored to not come back. Most people thought Rashid Shaheed. There we go. I was like, that did not come out right. Rashid Shaheed was going to leave. He was not going to come back in free agency. But that's not what happened. They re-signed him. He got a multi-year deal, I believe, in the $30 million range.
I didn't see a number. Let me go see if it's been posted.
51 million.
Okay, so
Okay.
more. 3-year, $51 million, I believe.
Yeah.
Yep. So they get their speedster, their special teams weapon back. But that's really all they've done in terms of additions and impact additions or re-additions or retention, I should say. Thoughts on that, anyone?
I mean, yeah, I completely agree. It did not feel like it was going to happen, but I'm glad it is. I think it's a good move. They also re-signed Josh Jobe.
Yeah,
He's
they
coming
did.
back.
That's
so,
right.
yeah, I think good moves on retention, and that's the thing when you win the Super Bowl. You have a good roster, so just bring back the pieces of that roster, and you can't bring everybody back. That's how you end up in cap hell. So bring back the pieces that you prioritize, and I think they've done a good job of that and bring back 2 important pieces. So what are your thoughts, JP?
It was something that really scared them in the post Super Bowl. The Seattle radio is who I'm speaking of specifically. They were concerned because the last time they won the Super Bowl, they signed like everyone back, but they signed them to like really big contracts. So like this offseason, imagine if they'd re-signed Kenneth Walker and they'd re-signed Boye Mafe, and they had re-signed Tariq Woolen and Kobe Bryant and brought everybody back. It ended up costing them because those players just didn't play to the quality that they had in the Super Bowl team. And then when you went and lost to the New England Patriots, the locker room kind of got split up, and it really kind of hurt them. And then they were in cap hell, and it took them a while to get back and get their feet, under them. Now I think what their radio wanted and their fans have wanted, did a good job in this offseason and signing some pieces, but not all pieces, and especially the guys that were going to get the big money, like Kenneth Walker and Boye Mafe and Kobe Bryant. And we'll see what Tariq Woolen ends up getting. I imagine it's going to be a pretty expensive contract as well. Instead, they brought back Drake Thomas, who they re-extended him. He was their 3rd leading tackler last year on that elite defense. Josh Jobe they brought back, and he had a really good year, and he can be the 2nd cornerback too instead of Tariq Woolen. But the Shaheed signing did surprise me as well, as it surprised you guys. I was not expecting them to commit that kind of money to him, but he is a big play threat that they kind of feel like they need. And in critical moments throughout the season, he made huge plays for them once they traded for him. He had a huge punt return and a huge carry in the Rams game on Thursday Night Football. Obviously, the opening touchdown against the San Francisco 49ers in the divisional round, the huge play over the top to start the game against the Rams in the NFC Championship. So they felt like his speed is not something you can teach, and it's only something you can go out and pay for, and they brought him back. I wonder if this is maybe a concern in-house that Cooper Kupp is going to play one final year and then retire, and now you can have some more, confirmation at wide receiver with Shaheed and JSN. But they felt like he was a piece that they couldn't let go because, like I said, you can't teach speed. Some guys just have it, some guys don't.
Yeah, I mean, I like the value on that contract. I'm just surprised they were the one that gave it to him. But moving on, we got 4 more teams left, starting with the San Francisco 49ers. Their big move today was signing Mike Evans, which is it's going to be really weird to not see Mike Evans in a Buccaneers jersey.
Or in the number 13 jersey.
Yeah.
Unless he buys it from Brock.
Yeah. 3 or $60 million deal, though it has come out that majority of that is unguaranteed. Non-guaranteed money is the correct term there. So while it maybe seems a little steep for an aging wide receiver, that number is really a bit disingenuous in terms of and the length in terms of what it really actually is. But I like the move. I
Yeah.
mean, you're probably only going to get him for 8 to 10 games, and hopefully those 8 to 10 games. Hopefully, he gets hurt early enough in the season. He's back for the postseason. I mean, ideally, they get hurt at all. Though, there's been a lot of talks about,
Him
put
versus-
in his hamstring that close to the substation seems
Yeah.
like a recipe for disaster. But no, I mean, he's a quality piece. He's when healthy, he's done nothing but produce, and they just need more productive wide receivers in that room. So
Yeah.
I really like the signing for San Francisco. Any thoughts on them?
I mean, I like it for them. I don't like it for him personally, and that's just more out of like it is gonna suck to see him not play for Tampa Bay. So maybe actually I do like it. I do like it for him. I don't like it as a fan, but I do like it for him. I think he can go to that San Francisco offense because I do think that he was kind of probably going to be wide receiver 2/3 next year, behind Emeka Egbuka and Chris Godwin. It was just going to be a crowded wide receiver room, and so he goes to a less crowded wide receiver room in California, a team that hasn't felt as the Tampa Bay felt not dysfunctional because I feel like to be dysfunctional is extreme, but like a
Frustrated?
mild case of dysfunction,
Unsettled?
frustrating, unsettled. It was an unsettled offense last season because you have that first 6 games or 8 games where they look elite, and Baker Mayfield is 6-0 on game-winning drives. Emeka Egbuka looks like the runaway rookie of the year, offensive rookie of the year, and then they just kind of collapse down the stretch. And I don't think the 49ers, I feel like they're a little bit more established. We know more what we're going to get from Shanahan, the consistency there. The offense is always going to be able to produce something, and that's mildly dependent on the weapons you have available, but he's shown that he's a very good offensive coach, and so I don't hate for him going to San Francisco. I think it's a good move for him.
I'm all here for it.
Yeah.
They had a huge wide receiver. Ricky Pearsall and Demarcus Robinson are like the only receivers they had on the roster. Christian McCaffrey last year, he had more catches than their top 2 wide receivers had catches combined.
Disastrous.
And neither of those wide receivers are on the roster this coming season either. So they needed wide receiver desperately. And it just adds another tool to the toolbox because Mike Evans is one of those guys that it's not just let's just go throw. I'll use Seattle, for instance. Josh Jobe, since it's in division. Let's just go throw Josh Jobe over there, and Josh Jobe can guard Mike Evans. No, you can't do that. And you can't necessarily even say, let's go just throw Devon Witherspoon over there and guard Mike Evans. It still can be a mismatch for a lot of corners. You have to commit multiple guys to Mike Evans at times. It felt like his time in Tampa Bay was kind of coming to an end when I can remember 2 specific scenarios last year in their little downturn where he is on the sideline animated and really upset at how are they losing this game. The most notable one being the Thursday night game against the Atlanta Falcons and the Kyle Pitts 2 butt cheeks in touchdown.
Yeah.
He's really upset after that and really upset his team for losing a critical game at that point in the season. The fact that the guarantees aren't in there, I really love. I think everyone's first reaction is, wow, $60 million, and we're expecting like $45 million of that's going to be guaranteed. The fact that it's not all is a really good job done by San Francisco because they've already made the mistake of committing a ton of guaranteed money to a receiver, and then that receiver would rather just drive a car fast by the stadium instead of showing up and playing.
Yeah.
So I love it for San Francisco. You just couldn't not get someone.
Yeah.
And where they're picking, which is it's either 27, I think it's 27. You're not guaranteed. You're going to get, honestly, maybe a second round kind of guy receiver at 27 if you're going to draft for need.
Yeah.
And they have more needs. They have a need at edge rusher. They had the least sacks in the NFL.
Yeah.
Last year. They were not great through the air as well. They have needs at other positions. So being able to address it in free agency receiver already is very nice.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I also think it's such a good culture fit. I think Mike Evans is very businesslike, and that's kind of all what the 49ers are about. They view themselves as a winning culture and a winning program, and they expect nothing less. And I think he's going to fit that very, very well. Moving on though to Mike Evans' former team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who despite letting Mike Evans go, they do bring back Cade Otton, quality tight end that they utilized a lot the past couple seasons. They also signed Kenneth Gainwell to share the backfield with Bucky Irving. 2-year, $14 million deal for him. I like that one a lot. I think he brings an added pass-catching element to the backfield there, as well as Bucky Irving, not the most durable running back, so good insurance there. And they also signed former Detroit Lion Alex Anzalone to a 2-year, $17 million deal to fill in the linebacker core. Thoughts on their move so far?
Not a lot of moves
Sure.
for a team that didn't win the NFC South, which was the worst division in football. So not the biggest fan of their offseason to date. But the moves that they have made, I do like. I do like bringing back Cade Otton. He's been a good weapon for Baker Mayfield. I do like bringing back Alex Anzalone. I think it's Anzalone, right? The E. You say the E?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. That's what I thought. Back to the NFC South, a division he's familiar with, and then I like bringing Kenneth Gainwell. So they've made a small number of moves, but I do like the moves they've made.
Any thoughts there, JP?
I was going
Go
to
ahead,
be
yeah.
in need. I mean, he only had 5 catches that weren't from Cade Otton last year from a tight end. That being said, Otton, I think, has got to improve his production. He only had 1 touchdown last year.
Sure.
Mike Evans gone. There's no excuse for him to not catch more touchdowns. Tight ends need to catch, especially tight end ones, which is the kind of season Cade Otton had last year. He's got to catch more touchdowns. I love the Kenneth Gainwell move as well. I thought he was one of the most valuable pieces for the Steelers this past season. He really showed that in a ton of games. And then Anzalone's a nice piece to add to that defensive team or defensive side of the ball that just struggled last year. Lavonte David, they hope to bring him back as well, but they were a bottom 12 defense in the National Football League, and that's just not going to get it done for Tampa Bay. So I like their moves again today. I think it was time to let Mike Evans walk, and I think Jamel Dean, letting him walk, you're fine with it because you have 2 really young corners.
Sure.
And Robert Parrish Jr., and you have another one as well who you've been a pick on. Another one, Sean Tucker, hasn't been re-signed at least yet. So I'm curious to see where our boy Sean Tucker ends up going.
I hope he's a
'cause
Commander,
it doesn't
man.
seem like he's coming back to Tampa Bay.
I'd take him in Washington. I'd love to see those tweets. Yeah, 2 more teams left. Tennessee Titans being the first. They had a very active day, had plenty of money to spend, new head coach, new regime, and their head coach wasted no time in making them the Tennessee Giants in a lot of ways, bringing some familiar faces along with them. Biggest one being Wan'Dale Robinson. Unless easily becomes Cam Ward's best weapon to date. Am I forgetting somebody?
I mean, he did have Calvin Ridley, who was a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL.
He might argue Elick.
For sure he had
Iowa
Treylon
man.
Burks on that list as well.
Yeah, I think he had Calvin and Treylon both top 5.
But yeah, big weapon. And they bring in Jermaine Johnson, or that they trade for him. That was talked about earlier with the Jets. They gave up Devondre Sweat for him. They signed John Franklin Myers, 3 years, $63 million, and also signed Delonte Taylor, who JP talked about a bit when talking about the Saints. Thoughts on their move so far?
Yeah, I think Harris, my brother's going to be heartbroken. It looks like Will Levis is no longer the backup quarterback there.
They brought in Mitch.
They brought in Mitchell Trubisky on a 2-year deal. I like the Wan'Dale Robinson. I like all the moves. Or not all the moves, but I like the big moves. I like the Wan'Dale move. I like the Jermaine Johnson move and pair him with Jeffrey Simmons. So I like the direction that this roster is headed. I will say the concerns about all of the guys being former Jets and Giants players might be semi-valid, given that neither of those teams has been great in the last or even good in the last 4 or 5 years. So maybe there's some concern to be had there of like, wait, why are we just bringing in players from bad rosters? But it's where the two, your head coach and your offensive coordinator both formerly coached. So it kind of makes sense that those are their guys. You just have to hope that they're right in their evaluation.
Yeah, they chose the right guys to bring along.
Right,
Sure.
exactly. JP?
I'm not moved as much with these moves as much as I was with the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah.
Like these just feel like more so moves that are just spending money to spend money. I do think, like, I really liked Delonte Taylor in New Orleans, but there was a lot of love-hate relationship with him. Of he would have 3 quarters where he would play unbelievable blanket coverage and play with a ton of charisma and confidence, and then he would give up a 55-yard pass interference on a critical 3rd down in the 4th quarter. I don't think that's something that's just going to go away when he joins Tennessee. I think they overspent on him at $20 million per.
Yeah.
I don't think, but the Wandale move, he's been productive, but he's only been productive because he's only been like the only healthy receiver at times.
Is it empty calories?
And he's just been it feels that way, an empty calorie for sure. Just a lot of catches for him. I wish they had made, some kind of splash move to shore up this offensive line, because Cam Ward was sacked 55 times last year, which was the most in the NFL. He was also pressured 172 times, which is the 2nd most in the NFL.
Yikes.
I don't think they made a move to address that. I wish they had made some kind of splash move on an offensive guard at least, because they do kind of have their offensive tackles handled a little bit, but they didn't do that. And so that kind of disappointed me. So I do think they just spent money a little bit today. I'm not moved by a ton of these moves. And now I guess we'll see where they go in the draft. I don't think they got that much better today, which is disappointing, but the amount of money they had to spend.
Yeah. I'm sure that's not what Tucker wanted to hear. So sorry about that, Tucker. But, JP just calls it how he sees it.
Yeah.
So let's move on to my team. I had to wait
Oh, boy.
all show. We're at the 3-hour mark. I had to wait 3 hours to talk about my Washington Commanders move so far. We had plenty of cap space. How have we spent it so far? I'll start with the re-signees. Marcus Mariota's back, $7 million deal. Pretty happy with that.
Yeah.
I was worried he was potentially going to go somewhere where he at least would compete for a starting role. But thankfully, there were enough other names kind of out there in the QB free agency market that just wasn't there for him. So we get to keep him as the backup. He performed just fine in the backup role. Didn't actually win very many games, but he was not the reason. We did not win very many games in his starts. We also re-signed Treylon Burks, 1 year, $4 million. I'm fine with it. I think he still has a little upside. He's got to stay healthy for a full year, and we'll see. And also, by saying he has a little bit of upside, it's like maybe he can be wide receiver 4, not like he's going to get back to his first-round form. We released Marshawn Lattimore. Had to happen. Horrible trade. Did not work out for us. We extended Laremy Tunsil, gave him a 2-year extension. Very happy with that. That trade did work out for us.
True.
And then in terms of the big splash, Odafe Owe, 4-year, $100 million contract, which seems quite steep, I will not lie. Was very good for the Chargers from a sack production standpoint and a pass rush win rate standpoint, but also didn't play a ton of snaps. Was kind of mainly only was a pass rush down, like a clear pass rush down guy only. And I'm just not really sure if I want to give $100 million to a guy who potentially can't be a 3-down defensive lineman because he's not good enough against the run and not good enough on the early downs. So hopefully he grows there. I'm not gonna lie, it feels a little bit potentially like a desperation move of like we know we gotta fix the defensive line and we don't really know how to, and so we kind of like this guy, so let's throw him a bag and get him to come here and hope it works out. That's kind of where I'm at with that. By the start of the season, I'll be ready to say he's going to have, 15 sacks and that the Chargers tape is legit and he's gotten better in the run, et cetera, et cetera. No, but we signed former Lions cornerback.
Amik Robertson.
Amik Robertson, thank you. And the defensive back room needs work. I don't think that's like a splash move. I think it's a fine veteran piece. All in all, it's kind of we're still in a bit of a wait-and-see mode for me and the rest of the Commanders fans and how we're going to feel about this free agency class because there's still some money to spend, still some stuff to do. But yeah, the OA thing's a little scary, I won't lie.
It feels a little unfair to y'all that y'all have all the needs you do in defense, and the Rams go out and get both the corners the way they did. Not unfair, but it's like, if I were a Commanders fan, I'd be like, bro, we're the ones that need help on defense, and you're over there bringing in 2 potential star cornerbacks. Like, not unfair, but more just like frustration with your front office of like, well, how come we can't do stuff like that?
The consensus between Commanders fans right now is, I wouldn't say many of us are out on Adam Peters as the GM. We are rapidly losing faith, though, and we are heading towards the point where we are going to be ready to move on from Adam Peters. I think a lot of us are probably leaning the way of that 2024 season was just kind of lightning in a bottle, and he's not the guy to lead us forward because he wasn't the guy to capitalize on that season and make the right moves off of that.
Yeah.
Time will tell. He still gets this season very much. I'll still go in this season with support. And once again, I want to see how the rest of this free agency class shakes out and what we do in the draft. But it's scary hours right now. I won't lie.
Yeah.
Anything to add, either of y'all?
I wish they had signed a running back because
Sure.
I do wish that they wouldn't have to draft Jeremiah Love at 7, or at least feel like they have to.
Yeah.
I
I don't think we can afford to.
so
I'm going to
I
be
hope-
honest.
I hope that's something that they address going forward. I didn't expect them to sign a big guy like Kenneth Walker, but I did expect them to sign someone top of market to
Sure.
pair with Bill,
Shout out Bill.
so that it isn't such a glaring hole. Because if there's one thing that's going to help Jaden Daniels is some form of running game.
Yeah.
And they just didn't have that last year.
I'm still also interested in
so-
what we do at center after releasing our center. How do we address that? Yeah, the running back thing is interesting because it's also I believe we only have 5 draft picks. And so, like, sure, you could go get a running back later in the draft, but I don't like only having 5 draft picks. I really would just prefer to not have to spend one on running back.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. Maybe we are going to have to.
You may not have to worry about it. Tucker says he's where the Titans are going to draft Love at 4.
That's a lot of buzz. There's a lot of buzz about that. I won't lie. Which I would personally love because that takes a team in front of us from taking one of the top defensive targets that I would want.
Yeah.
Like, it means that means most not guaranteed because I guess the Cardinals could take one of them at 3. But in my eyes, I'm like that probably means either Arvo Reese or David Bailey got past 4.
Yeah.
And that means if the Giants go wide receiver at 5, and then the Browns go tackle at 6.
Yeah.
Hey, Arvo Reese, welcome to Washington. Am I right?
Maybe.
But no, we'll see how the rest of it shakes out. That's all I have there. I do want to circle back to one move that did happen while we were recording. It happened like 20 minutes ago.
Really?
Devin Lloyd signed with the Panthers.
Okay.
3-year, $45 million deal. Panthers are going all in to fix their defense. Interesting how it shakes out. It's a bit of a risk. Lloyd really struggled before last year, and he really thrived in that Jaguars scheme, and now it's another scheme change. So we're going to see how that goes. But are you at all concerned, JP, about the Panthers and them kind of seemingly going all in for that division?
No, because they don't have the quarterback figured out.
Yeah, I just threw you a little lob there. They got Kenny Pickett. They got it figured out.
True.
Oh Lord.
Small
Don't
hands,
make me
Kenny
bring
Pickett.
Kenny Pickett,
Kenny Pickett's
Super Bowl
back.
champion Kenny Pickett.
True.
True.
Is that it?
Yeah, I think that's it. A little 3-hour show. We rattled
Yeah.
through a ton of it. I'm sure there's some moves we missed.
I don't think there were. We spent 3 hours on. No, there definitely were.
There was some that just happened. Things will change. That'll change our opinions on these teams' free agencies. But it was a fun show. And anything to add real quick, JP?
No siree.
I wanted to say, my mom just texted me and said she was listening on the drive. So drive safe, mama.
Drive safe,
She
Mrs.
said-
Oakley.
I said something about like, oh, people in the chat, and she texted me said, I'm watching on the drive, but I'm not in the chat. Does that count?
It
And I was
counts.
like, yes, it counts.
Yes, people in the chat. You don't have to be physically in the chat as long as you're listening
Sunny
live.
Styles
It counts.
at 4. Yeah, I would agree. Although I do feel like at that point, Tucker, you're picking between two of the least positionally important positions in football, and linebacker and running back.
That's true.
So if I were y'all, I would just like take David Bailey if he's sitting there. Sorry, Jack, but
That's fine. I'll survive as long as they don't go Ruben Bain. That's fine with me.
who y'all? You don't
Yeah,
Ruben Bain?
no. I'm sizest. I don't go for short arms.
Okay.
Not in the top 10.
Okay. So trade back to 11 or 10.
Well, I had visions while constructing my mock draft this
boy.
morning. I was like, maybe we do trade back to 9 with the Chiefs. Because the Chiefs, and this all has fallen apart, as both the Chiefs and Saints have taken a running back.
Yeah.
But maybe the Chiefs decide to hop the Saints to take Jeremiah Love because
Mhm.
they know the Saints are going to take Love at 8.
Yeah.
And so we fall back 2 spots, and then we can take Ruben Bain there.
Yeah.
But I wasn't doing a trade mock draft, so I just took Caleb Downs at 7.
No
Because
trades.
I didn't want
That's
Ruben
lame.
Bain.
That's lame. I can't wait. So we'll do your mock draft Monday,
Yes.
and then we'll do our group mock draft the Monday after that.
Yeah, I'm fine to do that. We'll have to see kind of how I don't even know how many weeks there is till the draft. So
Draft is late April, I believe.
we got plenty of time.
Yeah.
Well, with that being said, thanks for everyone who tuned in. Thanks to Tucker and Mrs. Oakley for keeping us company in the chat. And we'll be back for you all on Thursday for weekly segments. Possibly some college basketball stuff. Who knows? Time will tell. But can't wait to see y'all then. Peace.
See ya.